It's a bright, lovely day outside, but the mood inside the palace is quite the opposite. Yeonwoo strides down the fancy hallway, a sword held tightly in her hand. The ladies of the court gasp in shock as they see the blood smeared across her palm. Her attendants rush after her, begging her to stop so she can see a doctor, but she brushes past them, her eyes showing a haunting emptiness. She walks steadily toward the throne room, where the king sits in all his royal clothing, a smile spreading across his face at the sight of her. He announces with exaggerated joy that she has finally arrived to congratulate her husband, himself, on his birthday. However, Yeonwoo does not join in his joke. Instead, she holds his gaze firmly, her expression cold and hard. The king's joy wavers as he senses the tension in the air. He orders her to stop her reckless behavior immediately, but she responds with a strong and clear no. Confusion crosses his face, and a flicker of amusement sparkles in his eyes as he wonders if this is another attempt on his life, especially after her last unsuccessful try to take him down. His men laugh at her, dismissing Yeonwoo as just a foolish joke. Hearing their laughter, she grips the sword even tighter, and the sharp edges digs into her skin, drawing fresh blood. She tells her husband he should have just killed her instead of murdering innocent members of her family. He should have killed her and turned her into crow's food. The king urges her not to say such things, insisting that he could never kill the one that he loves. This declaration snaps something deep within our female lead's mind, and she flashes a smile that borders on insanity. She declares that her husband is crazy if he dares to call this love. Wobbling on her feet, she breaks into maniacal laughter. Yeonwoo questions him about how he can speak of love after all the terrible things he has done. Hot, bitter tears begin to stream down her face as the weight of her pain overwhelms her. She confronts him, reminding him that after he slaughtered her entire family and hung their heads on the city gate, he has the audacity to mention love. Her body trembles at the mere sound of his name, and yet he still thinks this twisted reality is love. The king gazes at her with an unsettling calmness, asserting that, of course, this is love. Her eyes, filled with disbelief, search his face for any hint of remorse or understanding. But there is only cold certainty in his expression. He tells her that she is his and his alone, just like it is carved all over her body. For the first time, we notice a branded mark just above her left breast, stark against her skin. It is a grim reminder of the king's possessiveness, a symbol of how thoroughly he believes he has claimed her. Her husband tells her that she belongs to him, and he smiles. She screams in defiance, declaring that she is not his, trembling as she holds her head in her hands. The king walks up to her, gently taking her hand and raising her face to meet his gaze. He tells her that she is his, and that she belongs to him forever. With a delicate touch, he kisses her fingers before turning and walking away. Suddenly, a chilling change comes over the female lead. She breaks into maniacal laughter, the sound filling the air with an unsettling energy. With madness gleaming in her eyes, she calls her husband a lunatic and says she doesn't know what she was thinking getting involved with someone like him. At this moment, the king notices the shift in her tone, and a sense of alarm washes over him. He turns around to face her as she raises the sword to her neck. She presses it against her skin with a manic smile that sends a shiver down his spine. The king, now visibly shaken, urges her to hand over the sword as cold sweat breaking out across his forehead. Yet, Yeonwoo continues to smile in that unsettling way, her eyes wild with defiance. She declares that he can never have her, and the one who can kill her is herself, not him. And with that, in one swift and violent motion, she drags the blade viciously across her neck, spilling her blood. The king screams her name as he rushes toward her. In the perpetually dark underworld, the king's birthday is the only day Yeonwoo gets to see the azure sky. But for him, it has become too much to bear. So, she has orchestrated a birthday fitting for him. As he holds her in his hands and weeps, she whispers a heartfelt, happy birthday to him. In a moment of desperation, he turns around and shouts for one of his guards to fetch the physician immediately. With a hardened resolve, she tells him that, since he has wronged her, may this day mark the beginning of a lifetime of suffering for him. As he screams for his guards to hurry with the physician, she casts her gaze over the crowd gathered, and her eyes land on a peculiar face among them. She wonders who it is and why tears are streaming down the man's cheeks. A chilling thought crosses her mind. Could he be crying for her? Inwardly, she urges him not to look at her with those sorrowful eyes, for she has just executed the ultimate act of revenge. She tells herself that she must revel in this death, to savor the taste of vengeance. In her final moments, she closes her eyes and prays to Tamya, the god of the underworld. She confesses that she doesn't understand why she has been made to endure such a cruel existence, but she does not wish to repeat it. She declares that she would prefer to disappear entirely rather than be thrust into a world where her husband, Hyojo, exists in the next life. Suddenly, Yeonwoo opens her eyes and surveys her surroundings in confusion. She drops to her knees, and she cries out to the heavens in agony, asking why she has been brought here again. The sound of approaching horses' hooves ignites a panic within her. The thought of Hyojo approaching sends shivers down her spine, and she tells herself that she must escape, that she needs to flee immediately. Yet, as she tries to will her legs to move, they remain stubbornly unresponsive. In that moment of anguish, she hears a voice behind her. Turning around, she finds herself face to face with a strikingly beautiful man who gazes at her with awe. He speaks softly and says she is someone from Earth. Yeonwoo turns around to see the man mounted on the horse, and she immediately notices that things are different from before. In her previous life, Hyojo definitely appeared, but the man she sees now is entirely different. A voice comes from her left side, asking if everyone is okay. Yeonwoo turns to see her father and younger sister, and even her mom. Everyone is still alive, and her eyes glitter with tears of relief. The strange man observes them and notes that they look like they've had an accident. He inquires if they are all okay. Her father replies that none of them are injured, then turns to the man on the horse, asking why he is wearing that peculiar outfit and whether there is a drama filming nearby. Yeonwoo and her entire family are dressed in modern clothing, while the man on the horse dons historical attire. Her father continues, asking the stranger if he can borrow a phone since his own has stopped working after the accident. The horseman seems puzzled, saying he's not sure what Yeonwoo's father is talking about, but he might still be able to help. He turns to one of his guards and commands him to escort Yeonwoo's family to meet Lord Jangkong. Our female lead's eyes widen with alarm at the mention of Lord Jangkong. He is the ruler of this place, the underworld, and also Hyojo's father. If things keep progressing like this, she realizes she might run into Hyojo soon, and he could already be on his way here. It's simply not safe. She thinks frantically that she needs to run away with her family, that they must leave this place as soon as possible. But where can they go? Just then, her younger sister Seowoo calls out to her from behind, mentioning that the man on the horse is going to help them. Suddenly, Seowoo stops mid-sentence, pointing out that Yeonwoo's hair has changed color. In that moment, our female lead looks at her hair and notices for the first time that it is now a brilliant shade of silver. The man on the horse remarks that her hair is truly beautiful, and that he has never seen such radiant hair before. He invites her to please come with him. Confused, she glances back at him. Her father quickly intervenes, questioning the man as to why he wants to take only his oldest daughter. The stranger assures her father not to worry, stating that he will ensure they are all reunited again after they meet with Lord Jangkong. Her father, skeptical, asks why he should believe such words. Suddenly, Yeonwoo thinks to herself that if they keep this up, they will most likely run into Hyojo. Memories flood her mind of her family's tragic death in her previous life, and she feels an overwhelming wave of guilt. It's her fault that they ended up this way. Determined to change things, she quickly voices her decision to go with the man on the horse. Her younger sister gasps, asking if she's serious, while her father warns that it's too dangerous. Yeonwoo thinks that she's not sure if this is the right choice, but if she wants to avoid meeting Hyojo right now, there truly isn't another option. At that moment, her mother angrily interrupts, insisting that her father and sister should leave her alone. She points out that our female lead has always operated on her own terms, unaware of the anguish burning in her family's hearts, or the worry that she is causing them. Yeonwoo starts to explain herself, but her mother cuts her off, declaring that she no longer cares and that Yeonwoo can do as she pleases. She then calls to her husband and Seowoo to follow the guard and to leave with him. Her father hesitates, asking if it's truly okay to leave their oldest daughter behind. She gazes at her family, pain etched on her face, knowing she can't explain everything she feels because they simply wouldn't understand. Deep down, she promises herself that this time around, she will definitely protect her family. Turning her attention back to the strange man, she steels herself. He tells her that she is quite an unusual woman for agreeing to be left alone with him in such a situation. He says it must have been a difficult choice. Holding out her hand, she responds that she has no other options at this point. She asks him if he has something important to discuss with her alone, certain that he does. When the man watches her with curiosity, she urges him to take her hand. Without hesitation, he grasps it and kisses it softly, declaring that it is an honor to hold the hand of such a beautiful woman in the underworld. Then he asks her what it is she wishes to say. Our female lead takes a deep breath, steeling her resolve. After falling into the underworld due to a car accident, she reflects on how she has always returned to this very place each time she has died in the underworld. This happens to be her third time in the underworld, and through the bitter experiences of her previous lives, she vows to use everything she has learned in an effort to escape Hyojo. With a newfound determination, she rises to her feet, affirming to herself that she can indeed do this. Looking into the stranger's eyes, she boldly tells him to own her. The man tells our female lead that asking someone who she has just met to own her is a very bold move. He asks her if she is aware of the meaning of her statement, and she replies that she is well aware. Having lived 2 lives in the underworld, she has come to realize one crucial truth. Once you are here, you can never return to your original world. It is even more impossible to remain unnoticed by Hyojo. The thought of repeating that dreadful life fills her with despair. She would rather die than endure the same fate again, so she expresses to this stranger that she would be his woman. He looks at her with a confused expression on his face. Then, leaning closer, he gently slips some of her hair behind her ear. He mentions that her confession somehow appears sad, and wonders out loud why she would make such a mournful face while proposing to become his woman in this world. His curiosity about her grows, but he states firmly that he would not accept a woman that he does not even know. Just then, Yeonwoo interrupts him, insisting that he must accept her. She explains that usually, when a lost person is found, they are checked for injuries or sent home. Yet he attempted to introduce her family to a person named Zhang Kong, suggesting that this is the established rule in their realm. Also, he requested to speak to her separately, meaning he broke an important protocol. With a savage smile on her face, she asks him if she is wrong. He responds with a smile of his own, acknowledging that her request does not seem simple at all. However, he requests a moment of her patience. Without further ado, he lifts her effortlessly and places her on his horse. He proposes a deal, clarifying that, as he mentioned earlier, he does not accept strangers. Moreover, he expresses his doubt that she is innocent enough to genuinely wish to be his woman. He urges her to be honest about what she truly desires. Looking down at him from her perch on the horse, Yeonwoo states that her heart's true wish is for her family to be safe, no matter what happens. She pleads with him to protect them. He smiles, indicating that he understands her request, and climbs up behind her on the horse, kicking it into a gallop. As they ride, he points out that they have not yet exchanged names. He introduces himself as Huida, and with genuine interest asks for her name. Our female lead responds, sharing that she is Yeonwoo, Chai Yeonwoo. With a moment of respite, she closes her eyes, allowing herself to enjoy the breeze rushing past her. It has been a long time since she has had the freedom to wander outside in this manner. Huida compliments her, claiming that she possesses a truly beautiful name. After some time riding together, he announces that they have arrived. He explains that they are at the back door of the castle and advises her to keep her hair concealed, as it stands out too much. Glancing towards the door, she suddenly notices some flowers that capture her attention. Huida observes her reaction and comments that it must be her first time seeing that particular flower. He explains that this flower blooms only in the underworld, a realm perpetually shrouded in darkness, with the sky always pitch black, illuminated only by the reddish glow of the lava pits. These flowers thrive on the ashes from the lava, which provide them with the necessary nutrients to blossom. After his insightful explanation, Yeonwoo replies dryly, saying that she understands. A flashback invades her mind, and she recalls Hyojo giving her those very flowers and telling her that they bloom as beautifully as she does. Her hatred for the flowers surges, and she glances at them with loathing. Huida notices her reaction but decides to remain silent, respecting her unspoken feelings. The flowers serve as a painful reminder that she is back in this sickening and dreadful place. As they stand at the back door, it suddenly opens, and someone steps out, calling out to Huida. The newcomer informs him that they have been waiting for the horsemen. Yeonwoo's eyes widen in recognition upon hearing the familiar voice. The woman greets her and announces that she will be accompanying Yeonwoo in the future. With a warm smile, she introduces herself as Sarim. Unexpectedly, a flashback washes over our female lead, bringing to mind a moment where she lays on a bed, and Sarim, her dedicated handmaid, comforts her by holding her hands. Sarim encourages her to admit when things are tough, assuring her that no matter what happens, she will always be by her side. In the present moment, Yeonwoo allows a sad smile to grace her lips, glad to see Sarim once more. The maid informs her that her family members have been settled in a comfortable place, which should bring her some relief. However, Yeonwoo's expression shifts dramatically, her eyes widening with anxiety upon realizing that Sarim is Hyojo's subordinate. The realization creates a storm of confusion within her. Why is Sarim here? Huida, undeterred, instructs the maid to accompany our female lead, advising her to dye Yeonwoo's hair. He merely requests that any color will suffice, as long as it does not shine too much. Afterward, he insists that Sarim should provide Yeonwoo with a bath and change her clothes before bringing her to his chamber. Our female lead, taken aback, turns to look at him in surprise. Huida glances down at her with a hint of mischief in his smile. Then he informs her that they will be spending the night together. In the next scene, we find Sarim and our female lead, Yeonwoo, alone together. The maid, with a bright smile on her face, shares the news with Yeonwoo as they walk through the expansive residence. She tells her that this will be her home from now on, and encourages her to feel free to explore. Yeonwoo nods in response, thanking her softly but soon looks away, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Summoning her courage, she tries to articulate her thoughts, but Sarim, perceptive as always, encourages her to share what's on her mind. Yeonwoo takes a deep breath and expresses her preference not to be addressed as Miss. She asks Sarim to speak more casually with her, feeling that it would create a more relaxed atmosphere. Furthermore, she mentions that she senses a misunderstanding between them, but reassures Sarim that there is nothing romantic going on between her and Huida. She insists that his earlier remarks do not imply anything of that nature. Before she can finish, Sarim interrupts, shaking her head slightly. She explains that first of all, Huida referred to Yeonwoo as Miss, so it would be inappropriate for her to speak informally to someone whom her master has addressed in that manner. Sarim pauses to gather her thoughts, then she adds that bringing a lady home is a first for Sir Huida. Yeonwoo looks surprised at this revelation, her mind racing back to the moment when Huida had gently kissed her fingers. She can't help but think to herself that he doesn't appear to embody that kind of behavior at all. Sarim begins to say something else, but then she looks away sadly and tells our female leader that it's nothing. She adds that it's not her place to speak about it. However, one thing is clear. Yeonwoo is special to Huida. When our female leader hears this, she is genuinely surprised. As she continues to walk with her maid, she turns to Sareem and asks what kind of person Huida really is. The maid pauses for a moment and then asks her if she happens to know what guardian spirits are. Yeonwoo gulps in response and looks away before replying that she has never heard of them before. Sareem takes this opportunity to explain, her tone becoming more serious. She elaborates that those who are born and raised here in the underworld are all imbued with the spirits of beasts. These spirits are what the inhabitants call guardian spirits. Sareem describes the range of these spirits, noting how they can vary from weaker ones, like rabbits or sparrows, to much more powerful entities, like tigers that reign over all animals. As she speaks, she gestures animatedly, emphasizing the variety of guardian spirits. She continues, saying that in dire situations, one can actually manifest their guardian spirits. The stronger the spirit, the stronger the individual is perceived to be. Yeonwoo listens intently, pretending to look thoughtful as she processes this information. Deep down, she has known about this all along. She is acutely aware that the most formidable individuals in the underworld include the king of the palace, who possesses the spirit of a tiger as his guardian spirit, and Hyojo, who is imbued with the spirit of a brown bear. Sareem continues to speak, revealing that Huida possesses the spirit of a black wolf, which is why people refer to him as the Black Wolf. Our female lead looks surprised, and a wave of realization washes over her as she recalls the look on Huida's face during their first encounter. She thinks to herself that the guardian spirit suits him quite well, aligning perfectly with his aura. In the next scene, we find her comfortably settled in a bath. Sareem eagerly asks her what color she would like to dye her hair. The maids chime in, suggesting that with Yeonwoo's fair complexion, any color would suit her beautifully. After a moment of thought, Sareem playfully inquires if Yeonwoo would consider dyeing her hair black, similar to Huida's striking locks. Yeonwoo notices Sareem's excitement and smiles inwardly. The old Sareem, who was never particularly sociable, seems to have transformed. This newfound cheerfulness feels both heartwarming and slightly unfamiliar to her. As she reflects on this change, Yeonwoo recalls the words of her handmaid from her previous life, who had vowed to always be by her side. Yet, because it is Sareem, she wants to believe wholeheartedly that this promise holds true once more. So much has transformed in this life already. In the place where she was supposed to meet Hyojo, she met Huida instead. Also, she met Sareem, not at Hyojo's castle, but at Huida's dwelling. The same goes for her hair. She wonders why the color suddenly changed, and she looks at it with picks up some strands with distaste. Sareem chides her gently, telling her not to touch her hair, as the dye might stain her hands. As Yeonwoo sits there, she gets the distinct feeling that each situation is attempting to convey something important, a message that this life will be different from her previous experiences. Consequently, she feels a flicker of hope ignite within her, a hope that maybe, just this time, things could turn out in ways she has only dared to imagine. Suddenly, her maid calls out, sounding distressed. She reveals that she has applied the dye diligently to Yeonwoo's hair, but it hasn't changed color. It has only dulled the shine. Yeonwoo responds calmly, saying it's all right as long as her hair doesn't shine brightly. However, Sareem seems disappointed, expressing that she had wanted to match Yeonwoo's hair color with Huida's. Yeonwoo looks at her in disbelief, surprised that this was her intention. She reassures her maid that it can't be helped and compliments her hair color, saying it's pretty just the way it is. Grateful, she thanks her maid for her hard work. Sareem then decides to step aside, allowing Yeonwoo to rest comfortably. As she enjoys the warmth of her bath, the hot water soothing her skin, she reflects on the events of the night and her encounter with Huida. Although he had proposed a deal, she realizes that she didn't truly hear what he wanted at all. A flicker of doubt crosses her mind. Still, deep down, she wonders if she is truly special to him, just as Sareem insists. Maybe he will protect her and her family, regardless of the terms of that deal. Eventually, she steps out of the bathtub and wraps a robe tightly around her body. As she acclimates to the cool air outside, Huida calls out to her from the side, asking if she's finished. Her cheeks heat up and she turns around, looking at him in surprise. He confesses that he had heard it usually takes women longer to prepare, but to be honest, waiting like this isn't so bad at all. Yeonwoo starts to stutter, flustered by both his presence and his words. She asks him what he is doing in there, struggling with a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Trying to lighten the mood, Huida tells her not to be too angry. With a sudden push, he gently nudges her backward, teasingly reminding her that she is the one who proposed the idea first. He reminds her that she's the one who asked to be his woman. Feeling overwhelmed, our female lead looks away, refusing to meet Huida's gaze. In a flustered tone, she also reminds him that he had made it very clear he does not accept women he doesn't know. Huida nods in agreement, acknowledging his previous statement. However, he explains that this is exactly why he is here now, to discuss the terms of their deal. He mentions that he doesn't recall ever officially stating his conditions for their agreement, and adds that now that he has accepted her terms, it's only fair that she accepts his in order for a genuine deal to be struck. Curiosity piqued, she expresses her desire to know more and asks him what his conditions are. A smile spreads across his face as he responds with confidence that it's very simple. From now on, he wants Yeonwoo to be his bride. Huida tells her that from this moment onward, he would like it if she would become his wife. This statement annoys her, and she asks him if it is fun for him to toy with her emotions. She argues that a woman whom he has just met for the first time asking him to take her seems laughable, which is why he had acted aloof toward her words and turned her down back then. She questions whether he thinks it is wrong for him to say this now, clenching her fist in anger as she looks away in frustration. Finally, Huida gently tucks some strands of hair behind her ears and apologizes. He admits that he hasn't explained himself well, which has led to her misunderstanding him. Huida apologizes for not having fully considered Yeonwoo's feelings. He continues, explaining that to be driven to the point of telling a man she has just met to take her, she must indeed be in quite a difficult situation. He asserts that he feels the same. Huida clarifies that he did not say what he did to lie or play a joke on her at all. Instead, he asks if she would give him a chance to explain his situation. He reveals to her that in the underworld, Jangkong holds a special status. He is the king, and at the same time, he commands the strongest familia. Huida mentions that there are currently 2 candidates being discussed to become Jangkong's successor. Yeonwoo's surprise grows as she recalls that Jangkong only has one son, Hyojo. Huida continues, explaining that one of the 2 candidates is Jangkong's direct descendant, named Hyojo, while the other candidate is himself, Huida, who is Jangkong's distant cousin. Yeonwoo looks at him in surprise as he reveals that Hyojo is currently threatening him because his existence is an obstacle to Hyojo's claim to the throne. Huida expresses that to demonstrate he is not interested in the position of successor, he needs a woman who is entirely unrelated to the royal family. And just at that moment, she has appeared in his life. He cautiously asks her what she thinks and if she would consider becoming his pretend wife. Furthermore, he suggests that when she is ready to accept her role, she should return to his chambers. As Yeonwoo prepares for the night, dressed in royal regalia, she reflects on what it means to be a pretend wife. She is escorted to Huida's chambers, with her presence formally announced. Lost in thought, she considers that in her past life, she had never heard of a distant cousin of Jangkong. Doubt fills her mind as she questions how much of his story is the truth, but ultimately she realizes she has no other options. When Huida gives her permission to enter, he greets her warmly, clearly pleased to see her. Yeonwoo thinks to herself that she is ready to accept his position. In her mind, it no longer matters what it is, Huida's status or situation. She must utilize everything within her reach, just as he is using her. Huida observes her expression and asks if she has made her decision. She affirmatively replies that she will be his wife. A delighted smile spreads across his face, and he confirms that it's a deal. Huida then offers her his hand and gestures toward the bed, instructing her to join him there. He emphasizes that, to outsiders, they must appear as 2 lovers who have fallen in love at first sight. He leans closer, preparing to place his lips against her neck, and asks if she would be comfortable with that. However, in that moment, he notices her earrings, and mentions that he had instructed Sarim not to allow her to wear them. He wonders aloud if the maid had simply forgotten. Gathering his composure, he leans forward, his lips hovering close to her ear. Just then, Yeonwoo is jolted by a flashback of Hyojo, who had once placed his lips near her neck. Hyojo's voice echoes in her memory, reminding her not to forget that the only person she can let near her in such an intimate way is him. Yeonwoo's eyes widen in horror, and she suddenly screams for Huida to let her go. Surprised by her reaction, he looks down at her, his expression shifting to confusion. Instinctively, he releases her, but Yeonwoo continues to scream for him to let go of her, panic increasing as she struggles to process the tangled emotions spiraling within her. Yeonwoo continues to scream for Huida to let go of her, and although she struggles, he slowly sets her down, clearly confused by her behavior. He remarks that she is unpredictable as he supports her with his arm. Outside, 3 maids stand close, listening to what is happening inside. One asks what that sound was, while another says she heard a lady scream. Sarim steps closer, trying to hear better. However, the other 2 warn her not to, reminding her that if she is caught, she will not be spared. Just then, the door opens, and Lord Huida sees all 3 of them standing there. He tells the others to leave and asks Sarim to stay. After they leave, he reminds her that he told her to wait for his orders and does not recall allowing her to listen in. She calmly explains that since it is an important night, she thought he might need something, even subtly flattering herself. He then says it is over, and that the important night will not happen again. Naturally, she asks what went wrong and why Yeonwoo screamed like that, but instead of answering directly, he instructs her to check for herself. As a result, Sarim enters and sees Yeonwoo lying down. After checking her, she says it is only a brief loss of consciousness and that she will be fine after some rest. She then questions why she cried like that, but he simply replies that he did nothing, which leads her to tease him, saying he handles other matters well yet chose to treat her this way. However, he thinks to himself that from the start, she was not even looking at him properly, as if her mind was elsewhere, and he wonders what occupied her thoughts. Sarim advises him to treat her well, reminding him that she is important and offering to help her feel comfortable, yet he admits he does not know how. He then asks if she has checked the marks on her neck, and she confirms she has but has not been able to trace them yet. She adds that she thought he would confirm it after spending the night, but since her condition is not good, it will be difficult for now. He says he understands and tells her to leave, making it clear that everything that happened today must remain secret. She agrees before leaving. Left alone, Huida walks toward Yeonwoo, looks at her, and admits that she is making him worried. The next day, Yeonwoo suddenly wakes up, screaming Hyojo's name. At that moment, Huida, sitting quietly in a corner and drinking tea, asks if she had a nightmare and how she is feeling now. He explains that she suddenly collapsed the previous night, which worried him. She struggles to remember what happened, and he reassures her that it is fine, gently urging her to eat first. However, he decides to make something clear, reminding her that she asked him for protection and that he agreed yet wants to know what exactly he is protecting her from, insisting that he needs to know everything. Hearing this, Yeonwoo begins to think deeply, wondering how much she can truly tell him. She stutters slightly and finally admits that she had a husband, her ex-husband. Yeonwoo says that before speaking about her previous husband, she will first talk about her childhood. She explains that her family consists of a strict mother, a loving father, a mature first daughter, and an affectionate second daughter. Although it looks like a normal family to others, she always feels like an outsider in that home. She recalls a moment at school where a teacher announces that the next class will be a parents' observation day and instructs everyone to show their parents the family newsletter. As she looks at the newsletter, she wonders if it would be okay to tell her mother. Later at home, she shouts at Seo-woo, asking why the house is so messy when their parents will soon return and questioning who will clean it. Although her sister says she will do it, this only makes her more frustrated. Their argument is interrupted by the sound of the door opening as their parents return. Seo-woo immediately runs to them, asking to be carried. Meanwhile, their mother looks at Yeonwoo with disapproval, and she bows with guilt and greets her. The mother questions the state of the house, and although Yeonwoo tries to blame her younger sister, she is quickly stopped and reminded that it is her responsibility to take care of her. She is told that the older one must act properly for the younger one to follow. She apologizes, and her mother says she is going upstairs to wash up, instructing her to clean the mess before she returns. As Yeonwoo picks up the toys on the floor, she thinks it would be better not to mention the parents' observation day, because even if she does, her mother will be too busy to come. She decides not to inconvenience her. The next day, Yeonwoo heads out to school and informs everyone that she is leaving. However, her mother calls her back and asks if she has something to say. She becomes shocked and confused, asking what she means, and is told that it is parents' observation day. Her mother wonders why she did not mention it. Yeonwoo admits she did not, explaining that she did not intend to hide it, but since her mother is always busy, she did not want to bother her. At that moment, her mother notices her hesitation and instructs her to look her in the eye and answer clearly whether she wants her to attend, urging her to think carefully. Yeonwoo stutters, then says she wants her mother to come, quietly reflecting that she has not seen her mother smile in a long time. Her mother calmly sips her tea and says that since it is her daughter's class, she should of course attend, assuring her that she will see her later at school. Feeling hopeful, Yeonwoo becomes happy that her mother will come to see her. She promises herself that she will work harder so that her teacher's compliments will make her mother proud and encourage her to come again next time. She believes she can become a daughter who receives love. However, at the end of the school day, her mother expresses disappointment, saying she expected her to be the smartest girl in her class. After seeing the other parents, she felt embarrassed. She explains that she wanted to see how well Yeonwoo was doing, but if things remain this way, she will not come again. As she looks at her, Yeonwoo quietly wishes her mother would keep coming. Yet her mother says she had wanted to proudly show others how smart and pretty her daughter is, but was unable to do so. She then says that if Yeonwoo promises to improve, she will come again, and Yeonwoo agrees. After that, her mother steps away to take a phone call and asks Yeonwoo to watch over Seo-woo. While Yeonwoo and Seo-woo stand by the roadside waiting, Seo-woo asks if they should keep waiting. Yeonwoo admits she does not know, but the call seems to be taking too long. Seo-woo suggests leaving, but Yeonwoo stops her, telling her to stay and wait a little longer since it appears to be almost over. However, unable to remain patient, Seo-woo suddenly runs onto the road. Yeonwoo immediately shouts for her to come back, reminding her to listen to her elder sister. In a panic, she runs after her without checking the road. At that moment, both of them are hit by a moving car. People nearby begin shouting for an ambulance, while their mother rushes toward them as they lie on the ground after the accident. Yeonwoo suddenly wakes up in a hospital bed and turns her head to see Seo-woo lying nearby, fully bandaged. She feels relieved that she is also safe, while at the same time apologizing for not being able to protect her this time. Soon after, she hears voices outside the door and realizes they belong to her parents. From their conversation, she overhears them arguing about the hospital bills. Her mother complains that they cannot afford to pay, and warns that if they fail to handle the situation, they may end up back on the streets, while her father tries to calm her down by telling her to lower her voice. She refuses and continues, eventually breaking down in tears. Listening to this, Yeonwoo blames herself, thinking that if she had not asked her mother to come to school, the accident would not have happened and her sister would not have been hurt. She cries, taking full responsibility for everything, believing it all started from her mistake. As time passes, both Yeonwoo and Seo-woo are discharged from the hospital, but due to the high cost of their treatment, the family is forced to sell their home and move into an older one. After the accident, their mother begins to treat Yeonwoo differently, often reprimanding her. Whenever she looks at her, it feels as though everything points back to her, making it difficult to even maintain eye contact. Years later, Yeonwoo grows into a well-known composer, and although she still struggles to move her little finger properly, people describe her as a beautiful composer who has overcome pain, which brings her more attention. One day, her song reaches the charts for the first time, and she quickly runs to share the news with her mother, only to hear her say she is proud of her while also asking when she can send the monthly living expenses. Yeonwoo responds that she expects payment within the week and will send it as soon as she receives it. Her mother, relieved, says she is glad things are going well and that there will be enough money, adding that the month has been very difficult, then thanks her. Yeonwoo accepts this without hesitation, saying it is her duty to support the family, showing how deeply she has accepted her role despite everything she has gone through. One day, her entire family were inside a car, traveling together and feeling happy, when suddenly the brakes stopped working. Her father, who was driving, shouted for everyone to be careful, but despite his warning, the car crashed. As a result, they all fell into the underworld for the first time, which is where she met Hyojo. He looked at her and said she reminded him of his mother, and at that moment, he fell in love with her at first sight. In addition, he treated her family with great hospitality and provided them with a place to stay inside his palace. As he whispered words of love to her, she experienced those feelings for the first time, and it slowly affected her, making her feel as though a warm spring had arrived in her heart. Later, one night, Yeonwoo steps outside and sees Hyojo standing with other people. She notices that he is torturing them to the point where blood is visible, which shocks her deeply. She asks what he is doing, but he dismisses her concern and shifts his attention to her instead, saying he heard one of them touched her and asking her to mention who it was. She hesitates in confusion and shock, explaining that they only caught her just as when she was about to fall. He explains that it is natural to punish them directly and insists that she simply tell him who it was so he can kill that person, even going as far as mentioning that he has already done such things to other innocent people. Seeing her reaction, he realizes she is surprised, so he gently holds her hand and reassures her that everything will be fine, promising to handle everything for her while declaring his love. In her vulnerable state, this begins to quietly affect her perception of him. Now we are brought into a tense moment as Huida listens to everything Yeonwoo has said, and immediately he asks if something like that really happened and even offers to protect her from her ex. And this makes her pause as she wonders if he misunderstood and thought her husband was just an ex. And then she admits that because of her ex-husband, she became afraid of men. And in response, he asks if she is afraid of him too. Yet she brushes it off. However, he continues and says he is kind, and then recalls how she once told him to have her. And from there, he assumes he must make her feel comfortable, even adding that if she had not collapsed last night, he would have shown her what kind of man he is. And yet she apologizes, while he brushes it aside and says it is fine since he did not mean it, and instead tells her he has somewhere to go with her today, explaining that there is a banquet at the small shop he runs, and that he has to change his face. Yeonwoo questions why she should go to such a place, and he responds that he wants to do what a lover should do as a man, and even asks if he should make their relationship known. And later he tells her she must also follow him on his schedules for now, while assuring her that if she needs anything, she can call Sareem or Soho at any time and that he will always be by her side. And then he introduces Soho as the one who will escort her from now on, and apologizes for the late introduction, adding that although he is young, he is very talented and will protect her when he is not around. And she says she is fine with it, although she then asks if she will be apart from him often, and he assures her it will not happen much since they will be using one room anyway, which shocks her. Yet he calmly says it is natural since they are lovers, and she accepts while still feeling uneasy about it. And then, as if that was not enough, he adds that after the banquet he plans to visit Lord Janggong and wants to introduce her as his lover, asking if she will be okay with it. And at this point, this is starting to feel like he is locking everything in place too quickly as the situation keeps getting deeper. Yeonwoo begins to tremble while thinking about Hyojo, and in her mind she tries to calm herself by reminding herself that she is going there as Huida's lover, and that he would not be able to treat her carelessly. However, her body still shakes, and he notices this and asks if she is okay, pointing out that her eyes have not looked right for a while, and then gently wipes her face with a towel. And she quickly says she is fine and that she only got lost in her thoughts, and then asks if they have arrived. Yet he instead asks if she is worried about what will happen next, and reassures her that she should not worry, because from now on she is his lover, and he promises that nothing will happen to her. And as a result, she places her hand in his, and they walk down together to the banquet. Then as they arrive, the maids bow to welcome Lord Huida, and she recalls how he said it was just a small shop, yet what she sees says otherwise. And soon an elegantly dressed lady approaches and greets him warmly, revealing herself as Dee-hee. And after exchanging greetings, she introduces herself as the best performer there while humbly saying she always receives too much praise. And then she notices the lady beside him and asks who she is, and he clearly says she is his lover, which leaves her slightly confused, yet she quickly recovers and calls her a precious guest and promises to serve them with more sincerity today, and then moves to the Gaiageum and begins to play. And as everyone enjoys the music and she finishes, He applauds and praises her as the best as expected, and she explains she practiced hard to give him a better song, which leads him to say it was amazing and that he will grant her one wish, telling her to ask for anything. And although she did not expect this, she makes a request that surprises everyone, asking that Yeonwoo play a song, and she reacts in confusion and asks if she is really being addressed, and she confirms that she is. Things start getting uncomfortable real fast as all attention shifts onto her. Now the moment takes a turn as Dee-hee explains that she noticed the young lady's hands and saw calluses on her fingers, which made her think she might play an instrument just like her, and she adds that a performer can always recognize another performer, therefore believing that if her guess is right, then her performance will be just as beautiful as her appearance, and as a result, Huida turns to Yeonwoo and asks if she can play, and she nods, and he tells her to go ahead, adding that while he would love to hear it, she should not do it if she does not want to. However, she accepts and says although it is sudden, she will play. But then she asks if her wish will also be granted, which confuses him, and she explains that since he liked the other performance and granted that wish, hers should count too. He lets out a soft laugh and says she still does not know him well, because even if she does not play, he would still grant all her wishes, and this makes her smile and thank him. We can see that she is slowly getting comfortable with him as she steps forward. She walks to the Gayagayam and introduces her song as Untitled, explaining that she made it when she was underground in a low room with no windows, trapped because of Hyojo's obsession. And as those empty days repeated, she found the Gayagayam, picked it up, and created the song, pouring in her regret for ever loving him and filling it with her hatred. And as she begins to play, the entire room is drawn in, while Dee-hee stands in a corner, shocked and watching closely. And everyone, including Huida, is moved by the performance, and this clearly provokes her as she cannot hide how much she is affected. And when the song ends, applause fills the room, and he praises it as the most beautiful performance he has ever heard and says since she fulfilled her part. He will keep his promise and asks for her wish, while at the same time she grows angry and walks out of the hall unable to take it. And she decides to tell him her wish only when they are alone. And meanwhile, the other one, burning with jealousy, moves to the back, remembering his words about the best performance and thinking that the seat beside him should have been hers, and she breaks down in tears. This kind of jealousy is already turning dangerous as the tension keeps rising. After the banquet ends, Huida and Yeonwoo walk together. He admits he is truly shocked that she can play the gayagam so beautifully. She thanks him. He then wonders if she used to play often on Earth. She explains that she did not. Instead, she made music professionally, which is why she can play many instruments a little. She adds that she has created several other songs as well, although it has been a long time since she last played them herself. As if that were not enough, he brings up something he noticed, saying that while she was performing, her pinky finger trembled slightly as if it had been injured, and he asks if she is in pain. She admits she injured it a long time ago, and although it makes it hard to perform perfectly, it no longer hurts. He remarks that it is a shame, which catches her off guard. He explains that even though she plays beautifully now, if she had not been injured, her music could have been even more beautiful. She thanks him for saying that, letting out a small sigh, thinking that such praise reaches deeper than ordinary compliments because it acknowledges both her skill and her loss. The moment shifts as he reminds her about the wish she said she would ask for. She begins to think about what she truly wants, which is to ask if they can use separate rooms. However, she hesitates, wondering if they must share one since their relationship is contractual. She also recalls that the first night was already ruined because of her, leaving her uncertain of what to say next. Yeonwoo suddenly looks up and realizes they have walked quite far. Instead of stating her wish, she simply asks where they are. Huida calmly explains that the place is sponsored by his clan and that it is his favorite spot. Without hesitation, he removes his shoes and steps into the ash, explaining that the wall is low, so a lot of volcanic ash gathers there. Moreover, if someone steps on it with bare feet, it feels like walking on clouds. Although she initially refuses, saying she is fine, he insists and points out that she has been tense ever since she arrived in the underworld. As a result, she finally agrees and removes her shoes, saying she will only try a little. As she steps into it, she is surprised by how soft it feels, and at the same time, she realizes it has been a while since she last experienced something like this. However, just as the moment becomes peaceful, he suddenly kicks Ash toward her. She protests, but he continues, encouraging her to enjoy it. Eventually, she fights back, throws Ash at him, then apologizes, saying that was why she warned him. He casually replies that it is fine, assuming she could not tolerate it, while she quietly thinks he looks handsome and even laughs. After that playful moment, they sit together on the fence. He asks if she likes it, then casually reveals that this is actually the room she will be staying in. She is surprised and asks if she was not supposed to share a room with him. He explains that his own room is right next to hers, and that there is a small side door connecting both rooms, so they are almost together anyway. He even jokes about his appearance, adding that since she is afraid of men, there is no way she would feel comfortable sharing a room with him, so this arrangement is better and will not burden her. He reminds her that the house is large with many rooms and encourages her to rest well. She thanks him. Later that night, Lord Huida walks down the hallway, and suddenly Soho is kneeling before him. When he asks what is going on, the boy reveals that he has finally found that person. In the next scene, Hyojo and Yeonwoo ride together in a chariot, and soon, it comes to a stop. As she looks ahead, she realizes the place is Janggong's castle, and immediately it becomes clear that this is the very day she might see Hyojo. The mere thought of him makes her feel dizzy. He notices right away and asks if she is okay. She quickly apologizes and explains that she just felt nauseous for a moment. However, he reminds her that he made a promise not to allow anything to torment her. As he says this, he moves a little closer, yet she turns her face away and insists she is fine. She has already made a promise to herself that she will never be afraid because of Hyojo again, even though the situation is frightening. After that, she walks toward the door, leaving him slightly confused, then asks if they should go in. He agrees. As they step forward, everything inside the palace remains exactly the same, from the structure to the placement of every item, which pulls her into a trance-like state. Suddenly, she imagines Hyojo right behind her, whispering that she has finally arrived while holding her neck. The thought makes her tremble, so she grips the hem of Huida's clothes for support. Although he notices, he continues forward and calls out loudly to Lord Janggong, announcing his arrival. A voice from inside invites them to enter, and this only makes her tremble more, because now she is certain that the moment the door opens, she will come face to face with her ex. But soon enough, we can see that instead of Hyojo, it is Lord Janggong, the ruler of the underworld. He immediately looks at Yeonwoo and asks if she is Huida's lover, then asks for her name. She answers that she is Yeonwoo. He comments that Hyojo's hiding her away made it seem as though he intended to harm her by calling her here. Yeonwoo remains confused, wondering why Hyojo is not present, since in her past life he was always with Janggong. Huida quickly denies the claim, saying he never did such a thing. Lord Janggong then questions why it took him so long to come. Meanwhile, Yeonwoo keeps thinking that perhaps, in this life, she might not meet Hyojo at all. Janggong says he wanted to meet him face to face, and now that he has, he assumes he must be tired and should return home to rest. However, he turns to her and asks for a moment with Huida alone. She agrees, saying she will wait outside. As she leaves, Lord Janggong remarks that she is a pretty child and advises Huida to ensure she adapts well to the underworld. Then his tone shifts as he calls him Black Wolf, making it clear he knows why he summoned him. Outside, Yeonwoo reflects that for a moment she believed she would meet Hyojo today, but nothing happened. She begins to feel at ease, convincing herself that this must be the end, and if Lord Janggong does not call her again, she will have no reason to return. She leans against a tree, feeling relieved. However, just when it seems calm, she hears footsteps behind her. When she turns, she sees the same figure of Hyojo. Fear grips her again as she wonders why he is here. He speaks in a low voice, questioning what is so special about someone no different from the rest, even remarking that Huida seems wrapped around her fingers. As he steps closer, the tension rises sharply, giving us the moment where peace just disappears instantly. In the next moment, Yeonwoo quickly hides and covers her mouth as the person walks past. For a second, she lets out a small sigh of relief, thinking he is gone. However, just as she believes she is safe, a voice suddenly comes from behind, asking who she is. She trembles as she slowly turns around, only to see the same figure again. Her fear rises immediately because he looks exactly like Hyojo from her memories. As he questions her again, who she is and why she is hiding, she cannot respond. Her thoughts repeat the same realization. It is him. Noticing her reaction, he comments on how startled she looks and reaches out his hand to pull her up. Her mind races, wondering what he intends to do. At the same time, she remembers that reacting the way she did in the past will only make him more persistent. She decides to stay quiet and avoid drawing attention to herself, though remaining calm is far from easy. Even so, she slowly places her hand in his, trying not to provoke him. As he pulls her closer, almost into his arms, lifting her from the ground, the tension spikes. She finally breaks away, pulling her hand back and shouting for him to let go. Instead of reacting harshly, he simply apologizes lightly and remarks that when he saw her trembling, she reminded him of a small mouse, which made him want to play with her. Yeonwoo looks down at her bruised hand and feels disgusted, thinking he has always been like this, never caring about her feelings and doing whatever he wants. She speaks up, saying that playing such games with someone he just met is unpleasant. Instead of backing down, he calls her cheeky and questions whether she knows who she is speaking to. When he says her name, she gasps and quickly declares that she is Lord Huida's lover, warning him not to treat her carelessly. She adds that even basic manners should make that clear. He reacts with amusement, calling her that man's woman and saying she is quite fierce. He even comments that Huida must have enjoyed himself with her and mentions that he once thought the rumor about him being a eunuch was true, but now finds it disappointing that it is not. His words only make the situation worse. After that, he asks for her name, and when she says Yeonwoo, he replies that it is a lovely name, which only deepens the uneasy tension. Soon after, Sarim comes looking for her. Upon seeing Hyojo, she is visibly shocked. Yeonwoo asks for a moment alone, saying she needs to rest, while Sarim continues calling out to her. She explains that she feels weak and that her legs have lost their strength, then leaves. Not long after, Sarim finds her and asks what happened. Yeonwoo apologizes and asks if she can return home first. Sarim agrees. Later, when Huida returns, Sarim informs him of what happened. He immediately asks where Yeonwoo is, and she says she is resting. He praises her for handling things well and asks what happened, but Sarim admits she is unsure since Yeonwoo was alone. However, she adds that Yeonwoo seemed very terrified of something. Hearing this, he questions it, saying nothing unusual happened during the meeting with Lord Janggong. Sarim then mentions one more detail. That before Yeonwoo left the back garden, Lord Hyojo came out from the same area. Several hours earlier, we are taken aback as Lord Janggong calls Huida, the Black Wolf, closer and says he is always grateful to him and his brother, explaining that their presence maintains peace. Suddenly, he coughs harshly. Although Huida moves to assist him, he insists he is fine and says it is only natural with age, as his body no longer obeys him as it once did. He admits he feels the time is approaching to pass on his position. Huida immediately objects, insisting he is still strong. However, Janggong brings up Hyojo, saying it seems he still does not trust him, and even admits he feels the same despite being his father. Huida agrees, adding that the false family bond will end someday, because Hyojo will eventually discover they are not related by blood. That truth will surface the moment he becomes ruler. Janggong acknowledges this, admitting he has been careless. Changing the subject, he asks about Yeonwoo, wondering if she is the woman he has been searching for. Huida pauses, uncertain, and admits he is not sure. Even so, something deeper lingers in his thoughts. Janggong calmly says he hopes she is the one, and in silence, Huida finds himself hoping the same. The next day, Huida and Yeonwoo sit across from each other, sipping tea. She apologizes for leaving abruptly the previous night, explaining that she intended to wait but left without saying anything. He dismisses it, saying it is not a big deal. When he asks about her condition, noticing she still seems unwell, she struggles with how much she can reveal. Memories of Hyojo and her past lives surface, reminding her of everything she endured. She promised herself this life would be different, yet seeing him again brings back the same fear. She simply says she is tired. He encourages her to rest, showing concern that surprises her. Sarim announces that her bath is ready and will wait outside. As Yeonwoo carries her things, she reflects on how Huida does not seem suspicious, only genuinely worried. She quietly admires his kindness. Just as she is about to enter, she hears a voice from inside saying, "No extra help is needed." She looks up and is startled to see Huida in the bath. She quickly apologizes and turns to leave, but he stops her. In that moment, she notices how unexpectedly gentle he is, and the closeness leaves her uncertain, caught between embarrassment and trust. Huida holds Yeonwoo's hand and asks how many people are waiting outside. He explains that Sarim is not the type to make such a mistake, so this must have been intentional. Yeonwoo is confused at first, but after thinking about it, she agrees that it is unlikely to be an accident. He points out that if she leaves now, it may raise suspicion. Since things have already reached this point, he suggests she warm herself before leaving, adding that the decision is entirely hers. She is surprised, but eventually agrees. She steps into the bath, staying at one corner, careful and cautious. In her thoughts, she reminds herself not to act suspiciously. Even if their relationship is only a contract, they must appear convincing. Their eyes meet briefly, but she quickly looks away. He notices and comments on how openly she stares at him. Caught off guard, she apologizes. He tells her not to, saying it is his fault instead, then casually remarks that anyone would find it hard to look away from someone with such beauty. He then grows more serious and explains that when it comes to him, he does not want her to feel sorry about anything. She admits she feels strange and believes there are many things about her that could raise suspicion. He acknowledges this but says he does not want to pressure her. Instead, he will wait until she is ready to speak, until she no longer carries such sadness. Hearing this, she reflects deeply. The kinder he is, the more she feels like opening up about her past. At the same time, she becomes curious about him. Eventually, she quietly thanks him. Elsewhere, Hyojo sits alone, drinking tea, his thoughts lingering on Yeonwoo, the one he encountered earlier. Yeonwoo is being dressed as Sharon carefully adjusts her outfit and ties the corset behind her. While doing so, Sharon suddenly notices something on her shoulder blade and points it out, asking if it has always been there. This catches Yeonwoo off guard. She quickly thinks back and realizes it must be a bruise from when Hyojo held her, yet she denies it and says she does not have anything like that, adding that she must have bumped into something by accident. Trying to move past it, she calls Sarim and says she is curious about something. Sarim calmly tells her to feel at ease. Yeonwoo explains that she is only going to teach him how to play an instrument and wonders if she really has to dress this way. Sarim assures her that she must, explaining that in a relationship between a man and a woman, especially lovers, no one can predict what might happen in the end. She even adds that Yeonwoo will thank her later. Yeonwoo agrees, though a quiet hesitation remains. Earlier, while sitting outside together, Huida had asked her for a favor, admitting it might sound sudden. When she asked what he meant, he brought up the song, Untitled, explaining that he had not been able to stop thinking about it since he heard it. He then asked if she would be willing to teach him how to play it. Hearing this, Yeonwoo paused, wondering what that would be like. Later, Yeonwoo arrives, and Huida is informed of her presence. He turns and sees her standing before him, noticing how beautiful she looks. In his mind, he admits he expected nothing less. At the same time, Yeonwoo feels uneasy and avoids meeting his gaze. Soon, they sit together with the Gaegeum. She explains that there is no sheet music and asks if he can follow by listening line by line. He agrees. As she begins to play, he watches closely and tries to follow her notes. The first sound moves her, bringing a small smile to her lips. As they continue, she comments that he is quite good, explaining that men are naturally stronger, so the sound differs from that of a female performer, yet his playing remains refined. He thanks her. She adds that he must be delicate and skilled at controlling his strength, which makes her pause, suddenly aware of her own thoughts. She quickly shifts the topic and asks if he enjoys exercising. He is confused at first, but she explains it relates to playing the instrument. Once he understands, he remarks that he thought she had become interested in him again, but she simply laughs it off. He explains that he does not follow a specific exercise routine, but practices horseback riding and archery when necessary. Then he asks something in return, what she likes. The question catches her off guard. After a moment, she answers that she likes the sky, especially the blue sky. He admits he wanted to get her a gift, but now it seems difficult. He then asks her to tell him about the upper grounds. She asks if he has heard of snow. He looks confused, so she explains it is something that falls from the sky, similar to ash but white and clean. She describes how it covers everything, creating a beautiful scene. Hearing this, he recalls that she mentioned it before and shares that when he was young, he once visited the upper grounds and saw snow for the first time. Before he can continue, Yeonwoo suddenly moves forward and jumps onto him, catching him off guard. In that moment, she urgently asks if he knows how to get to the upper grounds, revealing a sudden shift in her thoughts. Yeonwoo thinks deeply to herself that if she can somehow find a way to reach the upper ground, then perhaps she might be able to completely escape the terrible and suffocating connection she has with Hyojo, and in doing so, return to a life that feels peaceful, warm, and whole again. A life where she can exist happily with her family without fear, constantly lingering behind her. At that moment, Huida steadies her gently, lifting her slightly as if to ground her, and calmly urges her to relax, reminding her that she needs to slow down. His voice remains even and controlled as he explains that although he has been to the upper ground once before, it happened when he was very young, so young that his memories of it are unclear, fragmented, and incomplete. He continues by adding that even during that time, the situation had not been normal, because his guardian spirit had gone into a violent rampage after he was forcefully taken there, making the entire experience chaotic and difficult to recall properly. Hearing this, Yeonwoo is left standing in silence, her thoughts momentarily freezing as the weight of his words settles in. The small hope she had been holding on to begins to waver. Huida notices this shift immediately and apologizes in a quiet tone, explaining that he knows this is not the answer she was hoping to hear, and that he regrets not being able to provide her with something more helpful or reassuring. Without hesitation, she quickly shakes her head and responds that it is all right, insisting that there is no need for him to apologize, and that if anything, she should be the one apologizing instead. Her voice carries a softness, but beneath it, there is a faint trace of disappointment that she tries to suppress. He studies her for a moment before asking if she misses the upper ground so deeply that it affects her this much. However, he does not stop there, as he also reminds her, almost carefully, that the same place she longs for is also where her ex-husband exists. The mention of that fact lingers briefly in the air, but she deliberately chooses not to respond to that part. Instead, she admits honestly that she does miss the upper ground. She explains that it is the place where she truly belongs, the place where everything feels right to her. And more than anything, she simply wants to see the clear sky again, the kind of sky that stretches endlessly, untouched and bright. Huida listens without interruption, and after a brief pause, he lets out a small breath, saying that it seems he may have asked something too complicated without realizing it. He apologizes again, this time for being inconsiderate in bringing it up so lightly. Yeonwoo quickly reassures him once more, telling him that it is fine and that she was also at fault for how she reacted earlier. She acknowledges that he was only showing concern, and nothing more. He nods slightly, accepting her response before shifting his tone. There is something else he wants to address. His expression becomes more serious as he tells her that from now on, she must never go outside at night without him. Although she responds outwardly with agreement, nodding as if she fully understands and accepts his words, her thoughts tell a different story. Quietly, deep within herself, she decides that she does not intend to follow that instruction completely. He continues, explaining the reason behind his warning. Nighttime in the underworld is not the same as it is on the surface. When people die, their souls arrive there during the night, and these wandering souls are not always stable or harmless. Some of them, lost and confused, can pose a danger to the living. Because of this, there exists a being whose role is to guide them, a reaper. Yeonwoo listens carefully, nodding in understanding, though inside, she reflects on how strange it would seem if she revealed that she already knows all of this. Then, as if shifting the mood, Huida adds something else. He tells her that she will be able to visit her family that same day, explaining that the issue regarding their lodging has already been resolved. For a moment, she simply stares at him, processing his words before a genuine sense of happiness begins to spread across her expression. This time, her reaction is not forced or restrained. It is real. She expresses her gratitude sincerely, her voice lighter than before. He responds with a faint smile, saying that he prefers hearing that. She looks slightly surprised, and he explains that he likes it when she says thank you, adding that from now on, she should express gratitude like that instead of apologizing so often. She accepts this quietly, nodding as she takes in his words. Later, we see Yeonwoo speaking with Sarim in front of her family's place. She asks whether it will truly be all right for her to go alone, wondering if Sarim will have to wait for her for a long time. Sarim reassures her calmly, saying that there is no need to worry. She reminds her that this will be the first time she is seeing her family again since that day, encouraging her to take her time and be fully present with them. Yeonwoo thanks her, and Sarim mentions that she has other matters to attend to in the meantime. Yeonwoo agrees before heading off on her own. Soon after, there is a knock at the door. When it opens, Jae immediately recognizes her. Her reaction is immediate and full of energy as she calls out Yeonwoo's name and rushes forward to embrace her tightly. She comments excitedly on how successful Yeonwoo must be now, even pointing out how refined and expensive her clothes look. Without hesitation, she calls out to their parents, announcing her arrival. Her father appears, and the moment their eyes meet, there is a quiet pause before she greets him, saying it has been a long time. He responds with visible relief, saying that he has been worried about her all this time. She apologizes softly for causing that worry, but reassures him that she has been doing well. Then her mother steps out. She looks at Yeonwoo for a moment, almost as if confirming what she is seeing, before asking if it is truly her. Yeonwoo greets her as well. In that moment, there is a silence that lingers between them, a silence filled with everything that has happened, everything that has not been said, and everything that still remains unresolved beneath the surface. In a brief flashback, Sarim stands quietly beside Huida, maintaining her usual composed posture as he asks where Yeonwoo is at that moment. His tone is calm, yet there is a subtle expectation in his voice. Sarim responds respectfully, explaining that Yeonwoo is currently preparing to go out. Huida pauses for a short moment, as if considering something carefully before giving her a quiet instruction. He tells her to take care of a certain matter once they leave, though his words remain measured and indirect. Sarim lowers her head slightly in acknowledgement, accepting the task without further question. The scene shifts back to the present. Yeonwoo now sits at a table with her family. The atmosphere feels both familiar and distant at the same time, as though something invisible stands between them. Her father looks at her with concern that has clearly been building for a long time. He asks how she has been, his voice carrying genuine worry, as though he has been waiting for this moment to confirm her safety. She responds softly, apologizing once again for making them worry, while reassuring him that there was nothing serious to be concerned about. She explains that the man she encountered in the forest helped her significantly and appeared to be a good person. As she speaks, she keeps her tone steady, careful not to reveal too much. Her mother reaches out and takes her hand, her grip firm yet not harsh. She advises her not to trust people too easily, her words carrying a familiar sharpness, though not as severe as before. Then, in a slightly quieter tone, she apologizes for having raised her voice in the past. She continues, telling Yeonwoo that she must think carefully about everything moving forward, because none of them truly understand where they are or how long they will remain in this place. Yeonwoo nods in agreement, lowering her gaze slightly as she apologizes once more. Her mother exhales softly before thanking her. She says that from now on, as a family, they should share everything with one another. There should be no secrets between them anymore. Yeonwoo agrees again, her voice gentle, though something in her expression remains restrained. However, the atmosphere begins to shift. Her mother's attention moves to Yeonwoo's clothes. Her expression changes as she questions how she came to be dressed in such fine garments. There is dissatisfaction in her voice as she looks her over. Soon her words begin to carry a different tone, one that drifts toward complaint. She speaks about their current living conditions, about how difficult things have been, and about the lack of proper food. Seowoo quietly raises her hands, showing the blisters that have formed on her skin. She explains that she has been working in the fields, her voice small but honest. The sight alone says more than her words. The reality of the underworld becomes clearer in that moment. The air feels heavy, filled with smoke that never seems to fade. Above them, there is no clear blue sky, only a dull, suffocating atmosphere that weighs on everything. Despite all of this, Seowoo looks at Yeonwoo and asks if they can come live with her instead. Her voice carries a small hope, fragile and uncertain. Yeonwoo hesitates. Her thoughts begin to tangle as she tries to find the right answer. She admits that she cannot make such a decision on her own, her voice careful, almost apologetic. Before she can say anything further, her mother interrupts. She tells Seowoo not to place additional burdens on her sister, pointing out that Yeonwoo herself is still relying on someone else. Her tone becomes firm again, drawing a clear line. Then, almost immediately, her mother's expression softens. Her voice changes once more, becoming gentler, almost persuasive. She asks if Yeonwoo can bring something for them the next time she visits, explaining that their supplies are running low and that things have been very difficult. She suggests that Yeonwoo speak to the man who helped her, the one she described as kind, implying that he might be willing to provide assistance. At that moment, Yeonwoo finds herself unable to respond. Her mother pulls her into a tight embrace, apologizing for having to rely on her in this way. The weight of her words lingers heavily in the air. Around them, the others remain silent, as though they are all aware of what is happening but choose not to say anything. In the end, Yeonwoo slowly reassures her. She says that she understands and promises that she will speak to him. Even as she says it, she feels the burden settling deeper within her, heavier than before. Time passes, and she prepares to leave. Her mother notices and asks why she is going so soon. Yeonwoo explains that someone is waiting for her, keeping her tone simple and direct. Her mother nods, accepting the explanation, but just as Yeonwoo begins to step away, she calls her back. She asks if she is forgetting something. Yeonwoo pauses, then returns. Without hesitation, she leans forward and hugs her mother. The embrace is quiet, but it carries a sense of obligation more than comfort. In that moment, her mother speaks softly, reminding her that she is the only one they can rely on. Yeonwoo closes her eyes briefly before responding that she will do her best. As she walks away, those words echo repeatedly in her mind. She tells herself that she must protect her family, no matter what it takes. At the same time, another thought rises within her, just as strong. She must also protect herself from Yeojo. Her steps continue forward, steady but heavy, until suddenly a hand grabs hers from behind and her thoughts break instantly. Yeonwoo turns quickly, her heart tightening in her chest from the sudden contact, only to see that it is Sarim. The tension that had gripped her just moments ago loosens almost immediately, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. Sarim looks at her carefully, her gaze observant and steady. She asks if something is wrong, noting that Yeonwoo's expression appears unsettled, almost frightened. Yeonwoo exhales slowly, as though releasing something she had been holding in for a while. She admits that she could not find Sarim earlier and wonders aloud if her expression had truly been that obvious. Sarim apologizes softly, explaining that she may not have noticed clearly at the time. After a brief pause, Sarim asks if she has eaten. The question seems simple, yet it catches Yeonwoo slightly off guard. She realizes then that she has not eaten anything. Sarim suggests going to a place she likes, a buchimgae restaurant. She mentions it casually, as though it is something she has already decided. Yeonwoo hesitates for a moment, unsure, but eventually nods with a small, polite smile. Without questioning it further, she agrees and follows Sarim. As they walk, Sarim suggests that they also take some time to look around the market afterward, adding that it might help Yeonwoo relax a little. Hearing this, Yeonwoo quietly wonders to herself when she ever mentioned liking buchimgae, but she chooses not to question it aloud. When they arrive, Sarim gives her a small warning, explaining that the place might feel chaotic and that she should not be too surprised by the atmosphere. Just as they are about to enter, Dee-hee appears. She greets them with a composed smile, her presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Her eyes move toward Yeonwoo as she notes that she has come out alone today. Sarim explains briefly, keeping her response simple. Dee-hee then turns her attention fully to Yeonwoo, offering praise for her previous performance. She describes it as unique, something that stands apart. However, her words carry an undertone. She continues, mentioning that Huida tends to enjoy things that are new and different, but that his interest does not last long. She expresses a quiet hope that Yeonwoo will be able to hold his attention for as long as possible. The meaning behind her words does not go unnoticed. Soon after, she questions their choice of restaurant, subtly implying that such a place is not suitable for women of their status. Behind her, a few women let out small, amused laughs. Yeonwoo notices Sarim's reaction to this. Dee-hee offers to take them somewhere more appropriate, something more refined. However, Yeonwoo politely declines, explaining that she wants to try the place Sarim recommended. When Dee-hee shifts her tone slightly, directing a dismissive remark toward Sarim, Yeonwoo steps in and stops it. She makes it clear, without raising her voice, that Sarim is important to her. That single statement changes the atmosphere again. Later, after they finish eating, Yeonwoo expresses how much she enjoyed the food, saying it sincerely. Sarim remains quiet for a moment before finally speaking. She thanks Yeonwoo, explaining that she is grateful for the way she handled things earlier. Yeonwoo reassures her that it was not done out of obligation, but because she genuinely meant it. Hearing that, Sarim suddenly steps forward and hugs her tightly. The gesture is unexpected but filled with emotion. She promises her loyalty in that moment, her voice firm despite its softness. However, the moment does not last long. A group of men approaches, their presence immediately disrupting the calm. Their words are inappropriate, careless, and intrusive. Sarim attempts to leave with Yeonwoo, hoping to avoid unnecessary trouble, but one of the men reaches out and grabs her. She cries out in pain as his grip tightens. Yeonwoo reacts instantly, raising her voice and demanding that he let go, her shock evident. The situation begins to escalate rapidly. Then, a figure wearing a silver mask suddenly appears. Everything stops. One of the men immediately steps forward, his expression filled with irritation and anger as he demands to know who the masked figure is. His voice is loud and aggressive, clearly expecting an answer. Another man, without hesitation, throws out an insult, calling him a bastard as he moves forward. He raises his fist, aiming to strike, demanding to know what he thinks he is doing interfering like this. However, his attack fails completely. He misses his target and loses his balance, falling straight to the ground in an embarrassing display. The situation shifts instantly. The rest of the men, angered and unwilling to back down, rush forward all at once. What follows is brief but decisive. The masked man moves with precision, his actions controlled and effortless. One by one, he subdues them without hesitation. In a matter of moments, the fight is over. The men lie on the ground, defeated. He looks at them calmly before questioning their actions, asking how they can move around in groups like this just to harass a woman, and whether they feel no sense of shame for what they have done. His words are direct, leaving no room for argument. After that, he turns toward the women. Sarim recognizes him immediately. She calls out his name, Yuta. Yeonwoo expresses her gratitude, thanking him for stepping in when he did. Sarim lowers her head respectfully, acknowledging him and noting that it has been a long time since they last saw each other. Yeonwoo looks between them, surprised that Sarim knows him. Yuta responds casually, teasing Sarim by saying she is still as shameless as her master. Sarim accepts the remark without resistance, as though she is used to it. However, Yeonwoo feels a slight discomfort as she watches their exchange, unsure of how to interpret it. Yuta's attention shifts toward her. He checks whether she is hurt, his tone less teasing now. She reassures him that she is fine and thanks him once again. Without saying anything further, he suddenly leaps upward, landing on a rooftop with ease before disappearing from sight. The people around them begin whispering, confused by what they have just witnessed. Sarim turns to Yeonwoo, asking if she is all right, and acknowledging how shocking the situation must have been. When Yeonwoo asks who he is, Sarim explains that he is Yuta, Huida's twin brother. The revelation surprises her. Sarim continues, explaining that it is not unusual that she did not know, since he rarely appears and is almost always seen wearing a mask. She adds that the two brothers do not have a good relationship. Yeonwoo wonders briefly whether she should inform Huida about this encounter. Sarim reassures her that she will handle it and that there is no need for her to worry. Elsewhere, Dee-hee sits with members of her group. They speak among themselves, suggesting that Huida must be struggling and expressing disappointment that she cannot witness it directly. Dee-hee responds calmly, telling them not to be too harsh. She suggests that Yeonwoo likely does not know any better and adds that situations like this provide opportunities for people to learn. However, as she turns, she freezes. Yuta is standing right in front of her. She questions his presence, asking if he has something to say. Before she can react further, he strikes her down. The action is swift and unexpected. He warns her clearly, telling her never to lay a hand on that woman again. Dee-hee, shocked and angered, demands an explanation, asking who he is referring to and why she is being treated this way. He responds by pointing out details that are small but precise, making it clear that he knows exactly what she did. His warning is final. There will not be another chance. Despite this, she slowly smiles, her thoughts turning darker as she considers the situation from another angle. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Yeonwoo lies on the bed. She feels exhausted, even though she cannot fully explain why. After some time, she sits up. She begins to clean. For her, cleaning brings a sense of order. It helps her organize not just her surroundings, but also her thoughts. She moves quietly, focusing on each task. Sarim enters and questions what she is doing, surprised by how intensely she is cleaning. She attempts to take the broom from her. Yeonwoo insists that she enjoys it, calling it a habit of hers. Sarim eventually takes the broom anyway, though she still looks concerned. Yeonwoo reassures her once again, saying there is nothing to worry about. Sarim says she will return later. After she leaves, Yeonwoo continues. While cleaning, she notices a box placed high on a shelf. Curious, she reaches for it, carefully bringing it down. She opens it slowly. Inside, something valuable. She pauses, holding it gently, her thoughts settling for a moment as she reflects on how even the smallest things can bring a sense of comfort in the middle of everything. Yeonwoo picks up the box and notices a ribbon inside, something that looks like it belongs to a woman. She pauses, holding it for a moment before putting it back carefully, telling herself that it has nothing to do with her. As she closes the box, Huida appears behind her, arms crossed, watching silently. His sudden presence startles her, and she thinks to herself, "Oh my god, did he see me?" She quickly explains that she is cleaning, and he raises an eyebrow, suggesting that if she needed something done, she could have asked someone else. She shakes her head, insisting that she can manage on her own, and that cleaning is something she enjoys. He nods, accepting her answer, but asks her to make sure everything goes back in its place when she is done. Surprised, she listens carefully as he explains that the room used to belong to him, and although it feels a little embarrassing, He cannot feel at ease if things are left out of order. She agrees, but her mind drifts to the ribbon, remembering that he once mentioned it was the first time he brought a woman into this space. Her thoughts then turn to Yuta, whom she met earlier that day, and she shares this with him. He says he came to speak about the same matter, and she remarks that the two seem familiar, though he must have been wearing a mask. Huida listens and notes the similarity, and Yeonwoo wonders to herself whether siblings usually refer to one another as that man. She clarifies that she did not see his face, but only felt the same aura. Silence fills the room, and she feels awkward, questioning if she should have mentioned it at all. She decides to stand and tells him she will finish cleaning and return shortly. As she walks toward the basin to dump the water, he asks if she is going outside. She pauses and replies calmly, questioning if it matters, and he bends slightly to adjust her gown, reminding her of the many eyes outside. She thanks him quietly while he observes, noting that it is good she appears unhurt, and adding that over time, even Yuta might prove useful. Yeonwoo thinks firmly that she must never mention him again, and announces that she will really go now. Huida watches her leave and calls out, teasingly telling her to stop eavesdropping, revealing Sareem, who emerges blushing. He questions whether Sareem agrees with Yeonwoo's observation that Yuta and Huida resemble one another. She responds that it makes sense, given they are siblings, but he wonders aloud how Yuta, someone who dislikes resembling him and always hides behind a mask, would react if he heard this. Sareem remains composed, assuring him that he would understand, and he finally nods, agreeing that it is better not to bring Yuta up again. Later that evening, Yeonwoo and Huida sit together at a table, sharing a meal. He mentions that tonight's dinner was prepared by Sareem herself and insists that she must try it. He glances across at her and recalls that she enjoys spicy, oily food during the day and asks if she can still eat more. She nods, takes a bite, and tells him it is her favorite. He listens, noting he will remember this, and encourages her to relax and enjoy the long evening. Yeonwoo thinks back to a time when she used to drink alone after composing music, realizing how long it has been since she had a moment like this. She hums a few musical notes, and Huida observes, asking if it is a piece she enjoys. She happily admits it is, and though she apologizes for humming, he assures her it is not a problem, saying that a drink without elegance would feel empty. He picks up a daejum and begins playing a song as a special thanks for sharing the untitled piece before. Yeonwoo listens to the soft, flowing notes, thinking to herself that he not only plays the gyeogyam well, but also the daejum beautifully, understanding why people admire him. She notes in her mind that he enjoys trying new things but can get bored easily. In her thoughts, she accidentally voices a concern about him being too close to the Gzangs, which makes him stop and ask how she could say that. Shocked, she covers her mouth, thinking she did not mean to speak aloud, and she quickly reassures him that she is not implying anything. Standing, she compliments him, acknowledging his kindness, skill with instruments, attentiveness, and care for her family. He watches her carefully as she speaks, and she feels a mixture of surprise and nervousness at her own words. She reflects in her mind on how much she is grateful to him, feeling the weight of the moment. Realizing the silence, he moves closer, his face approaching hers, and she looks up at him, caught in a moment that feels intimate and significant. He notices a small crumb on her lip. He carefully lifts it, holding it up for her to see. She frowns, thinking he could have just told her so she could have removed it herself, but she quickly adds a quiet thanks. He smirks slightly and notes that it has grown late, suggesting they get going. She agrees, walking away from the table, and he pauses, saying it is a shame to end the evening so soon. She nods, and he comments that whenever they are together, time seems to pass too quickly. She smiles and bids him a good night, walking to her room where she lays on her bed, feeling restless. Her thoughts swirl as she wonders what she should do, realizing she cannot sleep, thinking about how close he seemed and how much she wants to understand her own feelings. The next morning, Hyojo rides in his chariot toward Huida's place, recalling Lord Janggong mentioning that his birthday is coming soon, and suggesting he invite Huida to the banquet. He mutters in frustration, questioning why he must see him so early. And as he nears the palace gates, he encounters the guards. He demands the gates open, and though they bow and try to explain that Huida is not present, he interrupts, furious that they expect him to wait without knowing the master's return time. The guards quickly apologize, terrified, clarifying that they only meant to inform him, and he brushes it off. Then he asks if they serve anyone else in the household and instructs them to take him to Yeonwoo, showing his determination and impatience to see her. Yeonwoo wakes up to loud noises outside and blinks her sleepy eyes, wondering what could be going on. She calls for Sareem, asking if something is happening, rubbing her eyes as she struggles to wake up. Just then, a familiar voice breaks through the noise and Hyojo appears with a wide smile, saying he came to the right place. Shock runs through her as she sees him, and she wonders what he is doing here. Sareem cries out, urging her to go back inside, but he pushes forward and she is steadied by other maids, barely avoiding a fall. She confronts him, yelling that this is a house with a master, and that even though he is Lord Hyojo, he cannot just enter freely like this. He smiles, acknowledging that she recognizes him and rejoices at the reaction. She thinks to herself that he is acting like a creepy punk, questioning if it even matters at this point. She warns him again that this is Huida's house, and entering carelessly is against the rules. He places a hand on his head, muttering about Huida's strict laws, and mentions he heard she has recently come to the underworld, noting it is good that she already understands the rules. Then he takes her hand and compliments her skill on the Gaiageum, looking directly into her eyes as he mentions an upcoming banquet for his birthday, and asks her to perform there, emphasizing that it would be powerful. Yeonwoo's mind races as she recalls all the suffering he caused, remembering how he confined her and murdered everyone connected to her, including her family. She struggles to comprehend that after everything, he is still asking her to perform. She firmly tells him to let go of her hand, shocking him as he demands a response, insisting she cannot refuse a royal invitation. Frustration and anger surge through her, and she strikes him with a punch while repeating her demand to release her. The tension is electric, her courage and defiance clashing with his authority and arrogance, and it leaves the moment charged with unease and unresolved conflict. I think I would have reacted the same way. Standing up to someone so bold takes guts, watching her navigate the danger with both bravery and fury. The scene leaves a sense of chaos and intensity as Yeonwoo fights to assert her space and autonomy, and the power struggle between them feels immediate and dangerously alive. Hyojo stands silently, staring at her. He touches his cheek, shocked, and then bursts into loud laughter. He seems almost incredulous that she would dare touch him even after knowing who he is. Yeonwoo holds his hand carefully and admits it was a mistake, insisting it was unintentional, and points out that if he had released her hand when she asked, his injury wouldn't have happened. He listens and acknowledges that she has a point, then questions whether that justifies her cutting his face. She doesn't answer directly, but he feels that her words mean that because he was hurt, he cannot ignore her now. He closes the distance between them and pulls her into a hug. At that moment, he commands that the criminal who injured a member of the royal family be arrested immediately. Serene protests, insisting it cannot happen, but the guards follow his orders, silencing her. Yeonwoo reflects, wondering if things had to end up this way. Just then, a voice interrupts from behind, and she turns to see Huida arriving in the scene. Hyojo immediately points out that her lover assaulted him and intends to take her to the palace for punishment. Huida, calm and measured, points out that before acting, some questions must be answered. Hyojo insists that nothing could be more serious than his injury, but Huida counters by asking why the private army entered his mansion without permission, why Hyojo is in the backyard instead of the living room, and why he grabbed her wrist carelessly. Hyojo becomes furious, grabbing Huida's cloak, calling him insolent, but Huida maintains his composure and emphasizes the trespass, the harassment, and the possibility of unsavory rumors. Hyojo, amused yet exasperated, remarks on Huida's sharp tongue and asks for clarification. Huida suggests that if Hyojo returns quickly, it will be as if nothing happened. Hyojo laughs, acknowledging the cleverness of the situation, and accepts, but only on one condition. At his birthday celebration, he wishes to hear Yeonwoo play the Gaiageum. Huida agrees, and Hyojo finally decides to let the matter rest, at least for now. Huida hears Hyojo calling her Yeonwoo and immediately asks why he suddenly brings up the Gaiageum. He explains that there is a rumor her performance is extraordinary, and he wants to witness it himself. Then he asks if Huida will allow her to come with him, and insists he is already looking forward to the banquet, imagining it will be wonderful. Huida corrects him, making it clear that she is not his servant but his lover, and that he only acts according to her wishes. Yeonwoo stands silently, thinking that she never wants to see Hyojo's face again. However, she realizes that refusing him now would create trouble for Huida, and she cannot allow that. She decides to attend the banquet, but she sets a condition that must be met first, which she shares with them. Later, Hyojo is seen walking through his palace early in the morning. Vivian, his fiancée, notices him and asks why he has returned so early, commenting that he seems to be in a good mood. As he walks past, she thinks to herself that he is a lunatic for acting this way again. Meanwhile, he glances up at a large portrait on the wall and mutters that he finally remembers where he saw her before. The thought lingers as he connects the memory to the face in front of him, revealing a mix of recognition and lingering irritation. Later that evening, Yeonwoo sits quietly, staring at the sky while thinking about the banquet. She wonders if it was a mistake to agree to go and perform in front of Hyojo, questioning whether she should have refused. As she shakes her head, a voice calls from behind, and Huida steps in carrying a bowl and some ointment. He places it carefully on her injury, noting that it is worse than he expected and warning that a bruise might remain despite the medicine. He adds that it is fortunate the injury ended up this way, considering how close he came to being dragged into trouble, and he apologizes for the earlier mistake and the commotion it caused. Yeonwoo reflects, admitting to herself that she may have acted out of fear, and tries to calm the tension between them. Huida then asks about her earlier encounter with Hyojo, pointing out that it was only the second time she met him. She pauses, trying to understand what he means, and he explains that after greeting Lord Jianggong, he learned from Sarim about the day she returned early and that Hyojo was seen near her at that time. He admits he did not press for details before because she seemed unwilling to talk, but now, seeing her injured, he feels he must ask. He questions if Hyojo was the reason for her pale and poor complexion that day. She looks down, avoiding eye contact, realizing he already knows everything, and confirms it quietly. Then she recounts everything that happened, explaining that he mocked her and that she did not mention it earlier because she never expected to meet him again, and certainly not to have him come all the way to her house. Yeonwoo sits quietly, thinking about the events that have unfolded. She reflects on how she thought that day with Hyojo would be the end, even knowing how reckless he is, and blames herself for underestimating him. She admits to Huida that after that day, things unfolded as he might have suspected. Hyojo forced her to perform, and when she refused, he tried to use violence. She explains that she tried to handle the situation on her own but regrets causing trouble for him as well. Huida feels anger rising at the thought of what she endured, but he remains calm, reassuring her that she should not apologize because the one who suffered most was her. He reminds her that he has already sworn to protect her no matter what happens, and she can rely on him. Standing, she thanks him sincerely while feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. She smiles, admitting that despite the danger, she managed to slap Hyojo hard, which felt satisfying. Huida congratulates her, but also admits that he feels he let Hyojo go too easily, and considers going back to strike him again. Yeonwoo quickly holds him back, insisting that it is enough for now, and that once this matter is resolved, Hyojo will no longer interfere. She recalls the condition she gave him. He must never come to Huida's house in that way again, and this will be the first and last banquet she attends. Hyojo agreed and swore to it. Huida warns her that she does not yet know how dangerous Hyojo truly is, describing him as malevolent and impulsive, able to change his attitude as quickly as flipping a coin, and that his words cannot be fully trusted. Holding her hand, he emphasizes that she should avoid him when possible, though he will always protect her. Yeonwoo then confides that Hyojo reminds her of her former husband in both appearance and personality, making him frightening. She recalls how her husband once locked her in a room out of jealousy, leaving her powerless while people around her suffered, but contrasts that with her current situation, noting that this time she is fighting back and honoring the promises she made. Huida listens, affirming that he understands, and reassuring her that they are fighting together. On the day of the banquet, Hyojo reflects to himself that everything is fine this time, and he is not facing the challenge alone, aware that the dynamics have shifted and that the events leading to this day have prepared them all for what is to come. Yeonwoo and Huida walk down the hallway, dressed elegantly, approaching the other end where Hyojo announces that his guest has arrived. Huida bows and extends his congratulations, which Hyojo brushes off as insincere and immediately asks if all preparations have been made, his expectations focused on her. She is given the gayagam and positions herself carefully to play, while he watches intently, thinking that she looks different now, as if her face could burst into tears at any moment. Yet her gaze is always fixed on him. He feels anticipation for the performance, curious to see how she will entertain him today. In a flashback, she remembers feeling troubled before that presentation, with Huida noticing her discomfort and asking if she is all right. She admits that it is not easy, no matter how resilient one is, to play for an undesired audience. But before she can continue, he interrupts, urging her to think of it as playing for his sake rather than Hyojo's. Back in the present, she reflects on when his words began to bring her comfort, and she begins by expressing gratitude for being invited to this special occasion. She dedicates the performance to Hyojo's birthday while acknowledging quietly to herself that the piece was originally meant for him with feelings of anger, asking silently that he not look at her in certain ways. As the notes flow, Hyojo is visibly troubled, sensing something in the music, while Vivian stands to support him, asking if he is all right, though he pushes her hand away, consumed by the conflicting emotions that her performance has stirred. Yeonwoo plays the gayagam steadily, focused despite the anger she senses directed at her from Hyojo. His gaze troubles him, and he scolds Vivian silently for her complexion as Yeonwoo continues playing without faltering. Once she finishes, she stands, and the room fills with applause. Later that evening, she is with Huida, and he praises her for performing so well, admitting that he had been worried, though it seems his concern was overthinking. She responds that she did as he asked, imagining she was playing for his sake, and his support gave her the courage to perform. She thanks him sincerely, but inwardly wonders if her words sounded like a confession, realizing that she only meant to convey that he has been a source of strength for her. Huida notices the cold wind and suggests she go inside, but she hesitates, aware that Hyojo could be nearby. Seeing the shift in her expression, he offers to fetch a quilt, and she agrees, sitting on the grass while reflecting that her words were not too burdensome. Suddenly, someone greets her from behind, and she turns, uncertain who it could be, but still returns the greeting. Before she can react further, the person pushes her to the ground, startling her as she asks what he is doing. He looks at her with fury and accuses her, asking if she is the bride of the god of death. The shock of his words and the sudden attack leave her frozen, and in that moment, the quiet evening with Huida is replaced by tension and danger, making her heart race as she struggles to process what has just happened. In the next moment, we watch Yanwoo trying to understand what Hyunsa just said about her being the god of death's bride, and confusion fills her as she questions his meaning. However, he does not hold back, as he accuses her of pretending, insisting that this must be the reason Huida accepted her. At the same time, he tightens his grip around her neck, and as a result, her breath begins to fail, causing her to struggle more and more. Furthermore, he continues, explaining that the plan is to use her to gain the full power of the god of death, and even suggests that Huida aims to take Lord Hyojo's place. Because of this, panic rises within her as she realizes she can no longer breathe properly, and the situation grows more dangerous with every passing second. Just when it seems like all hope is fading, everything changes suddenly, as a strong punch lands on Hyunsa's face and slams him to the ground, and we immediately see that it is Huida, who has arrived. In response, Hyunsa recognizes him and questions his actions, yet before anything else can happen, he casts a spell that strikes his hand, forcing him to pull back at once. Nevertheless, he begins to speak with a strange calm, revealing that his guardian spirit is a snake, and among them, the most dangerous is the pit viper. Moreover, he explains that once he uses that power, venom spreads through his whole body, and if the contact had lasted longer, the arm would have rotted away. As if that was not enough, he adds that the poison will soon spread unless the arm is cut off, and even mocks him by saying that the mighty black wolf is not so special. Yanwoo, on hearing this, is shocked, and Huida says, "This is nothing," cutting him by surprise and giving him a heavy punch to his face, which makes him fall to the ground. Then, before cutting off my arm, "I will just kill you." "Am I so incapable that I cannot even handle such trivial poison?" Huida says. This mysterious man now replies, "Very well. In that case, I shall enjoy watching you succumb to this drivel poison," he says as he summons another spell to blast him with it. "We will see what you have to say when that time comes." He charges towards Huida, and Huida reverses the action, pressing his neck to the ground. He tells him it is now over, and Youngwoo cries out to Lord Huida, but there is a tap on her shoulder from behind. It is Hyojo. He tells them to stop and everyone turns to look at him. It seems that perhaps due to the joyous occasion, the snake spirit made quite a few mistakes while intoxicated. I will apologize on his behalf. It seems you two are quite startled, Yeonwoo. Hyojo says. Huida sees this and tries to return to his fight with the snake spirit, and Yeonwoo calls out to him, pleading with him to stop. At this rate, she didn't finish what she was saying, and Huida picks her up, carrying her in his arms. He turns to look at Hyojo and says, "You should take care of the incident that your subordinate caused today." And Hyojo gives an evil smile. "I will handle it myself," he says. Huida, carrying her, walks her into the door, and she looks up at him and calls out his name. Yeonwoo looks up at Huida and calls out to him, trying to assure him that she is fine. However, he only looks at her in silence, and as a result, she chooses not to speak again while he carries her toward the chariot. Meanwhile, Sarim stands nearby and welcomes him, and once inside, Yeonwoo explains everything that happened. Immediately, Sarim reacts with shock and anger, shouting as she questions if Hyunsa, the snake spirit, has lost his mind. Her anger grows stronger as she points out how unacceptable his actions are, especially on a day like this, on his master's birthday. And she adds that it is not only an insult to the ladies, but also a direct affront to Huida. However, Yeonwoo quietly questions if that is truly the reason, which makes Sarim clench her teeth and ask what she means. Yeonwoo then reflects that this is the first time she has seen him so angry, and begins to feel that she may have caused trouble. Hearing this, Sarim looks at her with disbelief and reminds her that she was in serious danger, adding that even she feels enraged, which surprises Yeonwoo. In her thoughts, she begins to admire Sarim, feeling as though her guardian spirit must be a dragon, and even praises her strength and presence, almost like she has a rare ability. As the conversation continues, Sarim openly states that she dislikes anyone whose guardian spirit is a snake and admits she never liked Hyunsa from the beginning, especially when he caused trouble as Hyojo's aide. Hearing this, Yeonwoo recalls what Hyunsa said earlier, calling her the bride of the god of death. Yet she hesitates at first, and almost keeps it to herself, but eventually brings it up, admitting that he said something strange to her. This catches Sarim off guard, and Yeonwoo, still confused, asks what it means to be the bride of the god of death. However, Sarim chooses to remain silent for the moment, which only deepens the mystery. That silence says more than any answer could. At the same time, the scene shifts back to Hyojo's palace, where Hyunsa is seen in pain, frustrated and angry as he curses Hyojo, complaining that he was beaten so badly just for touching one woman, even though she is not his. As he struggles with the injuries and blood left on his body, we are taken into Hyunsa's thoughts as he recalls a past moment where Hyojo gave him only one warning. Back then, he pleaded for forgiveness. Yet his plea was ignored, and he was firmly warned never to touch that woman again, being beaten up mercilessly. Now, in the present, he reflects on everything and begins to connect the dots, realizing that since even Hyojo is involved with that woman, the rumors must be true. Recently, stories have been spreading that the god of death who rules the underground night has a weakness. The rumor explains that during the day, when spirits cannot move freely, the god of death also cannot use his full power. As a result, if someone kills him during that time, they can take his power and become stronger. However, there is a condition, and he carefully thinks through it, recognizing that the only obstacle is the bride of the god of death. If the god of death sleeps with his bride, he can keep his power even during the day, meaning he will have no weakness at all. Therefore, Hyeonsa concludes that to defeat him, he must get to the bride first, before either Huida or Hyojo can claim her. And as his thoughts grow darker, he begins to imagine taking revenge, believing that after stripping the god of death of his power, he will repay the humiliation he suffered. Just as he sinks deeper into these thoughts, a voice suddenly cuts in from behind, pulling him back to reality. And when he turns, he sees Yuta standing there, which immediately fills him with fear. Confused and shaken, he questions what kind of being he is, but before he can understand the situation, Yuta brings up what happened earlier, accusing him of laying his hands on his woman, and draws his sword. Hyeonsa tries to deny it, but before he can finish, the blade pierces through his body, causing him to cry out for help. However, in a strange twist, when he touches his chest, he realizes that nothing has happened, even though he is certain he was stabbed. As confusion sets in, Yuta calmly looks at the sword and remarks that it is not the right one, explaining that this weapon cannot kill someone who is already dead. This revelation shocks Hyeonsa, leaving him questioning what that means. And as he looks closer, he sees Yuta casting a spell. At that moment, he recognizes the presence of the four spirits, and not just any spirits, but black ones, which makes him realize that this is not Huida, but the god of death himself. Then, with a cold shift in tone, Yuta entrusts him to the spirits, suggesting that if he is lucky, he might survive. But there is also the chance that he will beg to be killed instead, and as his expression darkens, the situation becomes even more terrifying. Yuta casts the spell on Hyeonsa, and immediately, Hyeonsa begins to scream, begging for mercy, admitting he was wrong and promising never to touch that woman again. Yet before he can finish his plea, he is completely consumed. Yuta remains standing there, watching everything with a calm and expressionless face, unaffected by the cries for help, and states that he should never have done it in the first place. The moment ends there, and the scene shifts back to Huida's mansion, where Huida arrives with Yeonwoo, and she expresses deep gratitude for being rescued, admitting that without him, she does not know what would have happened to her. However, before she can finish speaking, he suddenly pulls her into a hug. In that moment, she notices how hot his body feels, which immediately alarms her, and she calls out for Sarim to bring a doctor at once. However, Huida refuses firmly, pleading that no doctor should be called, insisting again and again that they must not call one, even as she tries to explain how serious his condition feels. As they move further inside, Huida lies down quietly, and Yeonwoo stays by his side watching over him closely. Sarim approaches and suggests that they will take care of him, encouraging Yeonwoo to rest as well, but she refuses, choosing to remain because she wants to, and seeing this, Sarim accepts her decision. She then instructs the other maids to return to their duties, reminding them that there is still work to be done, and also believes that Huida would prefer to be cared for by Yeonwoo, so she sends them away. Left alone with him, Yeonwoo dips a cloth into water and gently places it on his head, quietly scolding him for being reckless. She then takes his hand and presses a soft kiss against it, her emotions rising as she begins to speak about the fear of something bad happening to him because of her. But before she can finish, she suddenly feels movement. Huida's hand lifts slightly and brushes against her hair, bringing the moment to a quiet pause. As Huida regains consciousness, Yeonwoo immediately notices and asks if he is awake, explaining that she did not call a doctor because he asked her not to, yet she is still willing to call one if he is in pain. However, he stops her and instead focuses on her face, asking why she is crying as he gently wipes her tears, but she quickly denies it. He smiles softly and says he must have been mistaken, since he thought he saw tears in her eyes, and even admits that he was startled. Hearing this, Yeonwoo reflects that this is how he usually behaves. Soon after, he says he needs to rest, but before he can withdraw, Yeonwoo raises her voice and scolds him, telling him never to act so recklessly again, explaining how frightened she was when she thought something terrible had happened to him, repeating his own words back to him. In response, Huida admits that he felt the same way, explaining that in the moment he thought something had happened to her, he could see nothing at all. And even if he may have looked unsightly, he was still able to protect her. So he asks if he can at least be forgiven for that much. As the moment deepens, he pulls her closer, and they share a kiss. Overwhelmed, Yeonwoo admits that she likes him, and asks if he feels the same. And he responds in a way that suggests she should already know his answer. As time passes, morning arrives, and Yeonwoo wakes up lying in bed, only to realize that she is in Huida's room. Startled, she sits up and questions how she ended up there, then begins to recall what happened the previous night, remembering that after taking care of him, they kissed, and she wonders if she fell asleep right after. However, as she looks around, she notices that he is not in the room and begins to question if he is already feeling better. Just then, she hears voices coming from outside. Sareem is speaking, explaining that she handled something as instructed earlier, and Huida acknowledges her effort. Hearing this, Yeonwoo realizes he is outside with her. Then Sareem brings up that Yeonwoo had asked about the bride of the god of death, and explains that she pretended not to know anything, asking what should be done next. Huida responds that it is not yet time and makes it clear that until he is certain about everything, nothing about this matter must reach Yeonwoo. He further adds that it would be troublesome if she were to leave before then. Upon hearing this, Yeonwoo is left in deep shock. Yeonwoo feels a chill of confusion as she processes what she just heard. Questions flood her mind, wondering why Huida speaks in such a strange way about her. Sareem reassures her that she will soon wake up, while Huida, opening the door, instructs her to watch over Yeonwoo closely and report every detail, no matter how small. Sareem agrees, attentive and obedient. As he looks at the door, Huida senses something unusual, and when asked if something is wrong, he dismisses it, claiming it is probably just the maids busy at this hour. Yeonwoo, however, cannot shake her thoughts, hurrying to a corner to sit and mull over his words. The god of death's bride. What could that possibly mean for her? She recalls Huida's earlier statements and wonders if she has misunderstood, questioning what he is hiding and what he seeks to confirm. Doubts gnaw at her as she reflects on the previous night, wondering if the mutual feelings she believed they shared could have been part of some larger deception. Her mind races, torn between hope and uncertainty. Suddenly, a voice from outside calls her, and she rises to open the door. Huida enters, asking when she arrived in her room. She hesitates, remembering that they had slept together in his room, and explains that when she woke, he was not there, and she did not want him to see her first thing in the morning. He listens with understanding, then expresses gratitude for her care, noting that she attended to him through the night. Yeonwoo stands silently, absorbing his words while her mind continues to swirl with questions about his intentions and the strange title he used. She feels a mixture of relief and lingering doubt, unsure of what lies ahead, but aware that Huida's attention remains firmly on her, signaling that the night's events have left an indelible mark on both of them. Huida raises his hand, showing how much it has healed, waving it in front of Yeonwoo's face as he acknowledges her care. She agrees, noting that he seems right, while he expresses that he owes her a great debt. Confused, she wonders if he truly does not remember, and he notices her expression, asking if she feels unwell. She reassures him that she is fine, only a little unfocused from the morning, and quickly shifts to ask if he is going somewhere. Noticing his dressed state, he explains that he has just returned from an early walk, enjoying the dawn, and she nods in understanding, warning him to be careful since his body may still have lingering effects from illness. Observing him closely, she begins to suspect that he may be hiding something, but realizes that, even if that is true, it does not change anything for her, because she has nowhere else to go. Suddenly, he notices a change in her expression and sees blood on her thumb. The memory of his words outside the door with Sareem strikes her, and she quickly pulls her hand away. Surprised, he lets it go, and she apologizes for being startled, while he casually shrugs, saying he was startled as well. He decides to take his leave, suggesting that she rest, and quietly closes the door behind him. Later, Yeonwoo sits alone on the balcony, reflecting on the morning's events. She thinks about how she shook off his hand without realizing it, and imagines how shocked he must have been. She reminds herself that, even if he is hiding something, she cannot do anything about it. The contract between them, she reasons, shows how far he is willing to go, even to the point of hurting himself. As her thoughts drift, something by her right foot catches her attention. A small fox appears, and she marvels at how it managed to get inside. Lifting it up, she realizes it is not a puppy as she initially thought, and she smiles at the unexpected visitor, holding the tiny fox gently in her hands while continuing to ponder the complicated bond she shares with Huida. Yeonwoo, as Sareem notices her and reacts with frustration, saying this strange situation is happening again, as she questions how many times such a mistake will continue. She moves forward and picks up the small creature, speaking as if it will forget everything later anyway. This confuses Yeonwoo, who wonders if she is talking to the puppy, but Sareem looks up and explains that the creature is actually Soho. This shocks her, and she asks in disbelief if the puppy is truly Soho. The explanation follows that his guardian spirit is still very young, so it sometimes changes form on its own, and moreover, it is not even a dog, but a wolf. In addition, she is advised to pretend not to know whenever she is around him, since he would feel embarrassed, and this makes the moment feel oddly light despite everything. Yeonwoo finds it interesting and reaches out to touch it, realizing it is her first time seeing a guardian spirit up close, and it looks no different from a normal animal. At the same time, she recalls that Lord Huida also has a wolf as his guardian spirit, which connects this moment back to him in a quiet way. As a result, her thoughts shift to the past, remembering when Huida once said that he had gone to the upper grounds as a child, but his guardian spirit went out of control, leading to him being dragged away. This memory leads her to ask Sareem if having a guardian spirit allows someone to go to the upper grounds. However, the answer is firm, saying that if such a way existed, everyone would have already left. Furthermore, it is explained that only in very rare cases do people reach the upper grounds and return, and even then, they do not know how it happened. Hearing this, Yeonwoo accepts it and continues to ask if anyone from the upper grounds has ever gained a guardian spirit. Sareem begins to answer but suddenly stops and instead questions why such a topic is being brought up. This shift creates tension, and although Yeonwoo feels confused, she is then asked if she wants to return to the upper grounds. At the same time, Sareem quietly thinks that things might become complicated if she leaves. Trying to avoid suspicion, Yeonwoo turns her head and explains that it is only simple curiosity. Even so, Sareem studies her expression and gently points out that she often tries to carry everything alone. Nevertheless, she reminds her that she is not alone because she has both her and Lord Huida by her side, encouraging her to speak up even if the matter seems small. Yeonwoo expresses her gratitude and agrees that she will rely on them more, and then, as the moment passes, the scene shifts elsewhere. We are now brought before Sewol, who plays the Gyeogeum for Lord Hyojo, and although she finishes her performance, something feels off immediately. He looks at her and demands that she play again, which confuses her, as she believes she has just played the correct piece. However, he questions her sharply, pointing out that the song sounded different from the one he remembers, and orders her to start over from the beginning. She tries to explain herself, insisting she is certain, yet her words fall on deaf ears, and the command becomes harsher, pressing her to play at once while accusing her of calling him a liar. The pressure builds, and he gives a final warning that if she fails again, she will not survive. As a result, fear takes over her, and she trembles, looking towards Seolhung for help. At this point, we are drawn into Seolhung's thoughts, where she coldly reflects that the girl has led herself to this end, realizing that this situation is not truly about the song, but about something deeper. She understands that what he truly desires is not the music itself, but the woman who originally played it. And even more, he wishes to see her again. She recalls her earlier suspicion, now confirmed, and notes that he does not seem aware of his own feelings yet, which leads her to decide there is no need to act. Immediately after, the situation takes a dark turn as Sewol is killed, and despite the brutality, Seolhung smiles. This draws his attention, and he questions her expression. She quickly masks it, offering an apology and explaining that she could not help but smile at his dignified presence. Even so, he finds it unpleasant, and the moment closes with a clear command being given to bring the woman capable of playing the untitled piece, setting the stage for what is to come next. We return to Lord Huida's house, where Soho and Sareem stand before him and bow, asking if they were called. At the same time, Sareem keeps staring at Soho, which makes him question her behavior. She then remarks that he has returned to his original form and even comments that he looks pretty and especially adorable today, clearly annoying him. He responds that he cannot help it. Yet before it can go further, Huida steps in and stops her from teasing him. Soon after, the focus shifts as he brings up Hyunsa, asking if they know what happened to him. In response, Soho explains that he was interrogated that day and released shortly after, but because Lord Hyojo personally handled it, he now seems mentally unstable from the after effects. This makes Huida pause and think deeply, realizing that someone like Hyojo, who never cared about others, is acting strangely when it comes to Milady, which leaves him feeling that something important is missing. As if that was not enough, Soho adds that after his release, Hyunsa has been saying strange things, including a claim that he met the god of death, and that the reason Huida is keeping a woman in his house is because she is the god of death's bride. This shocks him and fills him with anger, while Sareem also reacts in frustration, although she is quickly calmed down. However, the concern does not fade, as Sareem points out that if such a rumor spreads, Lady Yeonwoo will be in danger, and reminds them that they kept things hidden to avoid causing her unnecessary suffering if it turns out to be false. Huida then decides they should observe the situation for a while, believing that people will not take Hyunsa seriously. This leads to confusion, and Soho explains that no one listens to him anymore because he is no longer in his right mind. It is revealed that after leaving prison, his condition became disturbing, as he sometimes harms himself by hitting his head until he bleeds or scratching his body until his skin tears. And because of this, even his family could not bear to see him, so they tied him up and locked him away. Yet, on the rare moments he can speak clearly, he keeps repeating that he saw the god of death, the white god of death. As a result, Huida reveals the truth behind it, stating that this was done by Yuta, who gave his soul to the black spirits. When asked about this, he explains that the soul and body are meant to be one, separating only at death. But the black spirits defy this order, and whether one devours or is devoured, the result is always terrible. Because of this, Yeonsa will never regain his sanity, and even what remains of him will soon go out of control, which is why giving a soul to a spirit is forbidden. Finally, when Soho questions how he is so sure Yuta is responsible, Huida explains that at dawn that day, he sensed a spirit where it should not have been. And since only the gods of death can control spirits, and he himself had collapsed from poison, it could only have been Yuta. As he reflects on this, a quiet frustration rises within him, questioning why such a dangerous act was done in the first place. In the morning, across the city, people pass around a growing rumor, each one adding more fear to it. Some question if it is true and wonder if even their master might be called to the palace soon. Just then, Danhui arrives, cutting through the noise and reminding them that the banquet is about to begin. However, her younger sister quickly brings up the rumor, explaining that at Lord Hyojo's castle, people who can play a song called Untitled are being searched for, yet none of those summoned have returned safely. This shocks her. And as she asks for clarity, a memory surfaces of Yeonwoo playing that same song before Lord Huida, making the connection feel too real. The others continue, mentioning that even Sewol, who had been gaining fame, went with excitement but returned as a corpse, which deepens the tension. As a result, frustration builds within her as she reflects on everything that has been happening, blaming it all on the mysterious woman who suddenly appeared. Suddenly, the flow of conversation is interrupted when someone rushes in with news that the performance has been canceled. This surprises everyone, and disappointment spreads, especially among those who had prepared to see Lord Huida. When asked for details, it is revealed that he has been injured, possibly during Lord Hyojo's birthday banquet, where a large fight broke out over his lover, and that he was even poisoned. Hearing this, she begins to connect everything, and anger rises as she concludes that he must have been hurt because of that woman. Without hesitation, she storms out, determined to see him herself, ignoring those who call after her. At the same time, we return to Lord Huida's house, where Yeonwoo stands quietly, looking up at the sky, until footsteps approach from behind. She turns and sees Danhui rushing toward her with clear anger. The moment quickly turns tense as accusations are thrown, blaming her for the harm done to him, questioning how she can remain so calm. Confused, she asks what she means, but the response only grows sharper, bringing up the rumor again and claiming that those summoned to play the Untitled song have all lost their lives. The words grow harsher, accusing her of charming men so easily, and even suggesting she should have been born as a Jijiang instead. She then questions how she even entered such a place, only to be met with a calm but firm reply that such titles mean nothing, and that barging in like this shows selfishness. The argument escalates further as her actions are called out, pointing out that this is not concern but anger being taken out on the wrong person. As if that was not enough, her idea of love is challenged, described as forceful and wrong, which only fuels her rage. Unable to accept it, she lashes out and strikes her, but the moment does not end there, as Yeonwoo immediately fights back with a punch, leaving her completely speechless and shifting the balance of the confrontation in an instant. Ms. Danhui falls to the ground, holding her face in shock, and yet her anger does not fade. She demands an answer, while Yeonwoo, still holding her wrist, questions her actions in return. The reason comes out in a rush of blame, as she insists everything is her fault, claiming her colleagues died and even Lord Huida was injured because of her. However, Yeonwoo does not accept this, and instead calmly points out the truth. The ones who went to the castle were summoned by someone else, ordered to play a song, and killed for failing to satisfy that person. Therefore, the blame makes no sense. As we follow this exchange, it becomes clear that the real reason behind the anger is not justice, but jealousy. And once this is exposed, Danhui admits it without hesitation. Just when it feels like the situation might settle, everything escalates again as she pulls out a hairpin and tries to stab her, driven by the thought that she should have been the one standing beside Lord Huida. However, the guards step in at once, blocking the attack and calling her out, warning her to stop before they summon him. At that point, Yeonwoo remains composed and asks her to leave, hoping they never meet under such circumstances again. Even then, the anger in Danhui does not disappear, and she trembles as she stands there. Soon after, as Yeonwoo walks inside, Sareem rushes to her side, worried and checking if she was hurt. At the same time, guilt fills her voice, as she apologizes for not being there at that moment, saying she failed to stay by her side and protect her. Even so, Yeonwoo reassures her, explaining that the situation was handled properly on her own. Hearing this, Sareem praises her, and the moment softens slightly. Then, curiosity shifts the focus as she asks about Lord Huida, and Sareem explains that he has stepped out of the compound for a while. However, something in her tone feels unclear, and Yeonwoo notices it, especially after hearing that the banquet was canceled. When she asks again, the answer remains uncertain, and she learns that he may have gone anyway because of his role, although he plans to return early. As we stay with her thoughts, we see her quietly accept this. Yet she also reflects that there are many others around him, and Dan Hui is not the only one lingering. Even though she knows she cannot control his actions, she still wishes, just for today, things were different. As she touches her face, Sareem notices and asks if she is all right. But instead of explaining further, she simply apologizes and hurries back inside to rest, leaving behind a feeling that something is not quite right. Yeonwoo walks outside to Huida's favorite spot, her bare feet pressing into the ash as she begins kicking it absent-mindedly. She questions herself, trying to make sense of her emotions, and wonders what she is doing there. As she kicks, she reminds herself that Huida is simply doing his duty as the leader of the merchant group, and asks why that should bother her. She recalls her earlier words to Dan Hui, and admits quietly to herself that she didn't mean them as she said. Maybe Dan Hui wasn't the jealous one. Perhaps it was her. Her thoughts swirl as she continues, the ash scattering with each movement, when suddenly a voice calls behind her. She spins around in shock to see Lord Yuda standing there, asking if she is feeling any better. He mentions that he heard about the incident with Hyunsa, and she reassures him that she is fine, thanking him. Then he apologizes, saying that because of her, Lord Huida was seriously injured. Yeonwoo reassures him that there is no need to worry, though she catches herself thinking that no matter how strained their relationship is, that seems extreme. She starts to remind him that Huida is still his brother, but he interrupts, explaining that she doesn't need to worry because of their peculiar constitution. Even if injured, they recover faster than ordinary people, though the pain they feel is far more intense. He shows her his arm, and she finds it interesting, though she doubts him, and cautiously asks if such a constitution might cause total memory loss. He says no, and she smiles, admitting she asked a useless question. Turning her face away, she hears him continue, saying that sometimes the pain causes confusion, and there are moments when he forgets what he said. Her mind flashes back to that night, realizing it might explain why she remembered so little. Then he shifts the topic, noting that she still enjoys walking on ashes barefoot. She responds simply, saying there is no grand reason, that she does it because she wants to, and it makes her feel at ease. His words make her pause, and she questions him silently, thinking that he just acknowledged something personal. She turns to ask him if he really knew her before, and he says he is glad to see that she is okay, leaving her thoughts tangled between curiosity and surprise. Enjoying this so far? Comment Part 2 below. Until next time, ciao.